is 365 Sports.
The Sooners are spread out as White's back to throw. Gonna go deep, got a man open, touchdown Oklahoma, Travis Wilson.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Gundy, handoff again. Sanders, running room, look out, could go. One man to beat, he does. Touchdown, Oklahoma State.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Winky going toward the end zone. Caught! Touchdown, Marvin Mims!
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
And he throws for Glenn, and he's picked off. Charles Woodson.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, here we go on this Wednesday, a day before the Sweet 16. And tomorrow we'll find out who's going to be part of who plays this weekend. Same thing Friday evening. And then, of course, the Final Four will be set by the end of the day on Sunday. Where's that at, guys? The Final Four.
San Antonio.
San Antonio, Texas, just right down the road from us, which used to be a good 3-hour drive or so, and now it's about 50 minutes with that toll that on the northern side of Austin. That thing is amazing.
It's gotten a little slower because they built Tesla right there.
Oh, it's a massive place.
And because it's Tesla and then the airport right there together. So that's a lot of people going off those two exits right there to Tesla and then the airport. But for the most part, it's pretty smooth.
When we went down there, and I can't remember the last time we went down there. What did we do? It was something we went down to.
We flew out of there for
Super Austin.
Bowl, yeah.
And we drove by what was still they were building Tesla.
They still are. I mean,
it's the biggest building I've ever seen in my life.
They're never, like, it's so big, I feel like they're never not going to be building it. Like, they'll finish one part of it, and then they'll have to go back because it'll be 2050. You know?
Something has changed with what they have to do, the code. All right, West Virginia has their man. He's coaching at North Texas. They're in the NIT semifinals, but West Virginia is hiring Ross Hodge. 5-year contract. I know for a fact Ren Baker's pumped up about this because he was there at North Texas when, of course, Grant McCasland, Ross Hodge was hired by McCasland to join his staff in 2000, I think, 16 or 17. And he now will be the head coach at West Virginia. They have the NIT semifinals to come, and hopefully for them the championship game after winning in Stillwater last night in dramatic fashion. So Ross Hodge, is now the head coach at West Virginia. There are some people that were hoping for a bigger name, and I texted Tony Caridi, voice of West Virginia Athletics, and said, man, I'm telling you, he's his own guy, but he has almost a mirror image, his resume, to Grant McCasland, who we will have today in about an hour. We hope to have Grant McCasland join us on 365 Sports.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk to Grant. I'm curious to hear about his friendship with Ben McCollum because Ben talked about him so much last week, and of course he's on to Iowa. I do think that Ross Hodge is a really cool hire. I know that like West Virginia fans, you know, they want the resume to be, you know, akin to like they're chasing Bob Huggins right now. They want a guy like Bob Huggins to come in because he was great at Cincinnati and he had his great time there. They want that again, but, you know, it's a new athletic director. You want somebody the athletic director believes in, is comfortable with. And look, Ross Hodge knows how to win. He's won at all these levels. And much like Ben McCollum, like sometimes, look, you just need to apply the system you know works to a higher level of talent. Give it a chance. Like every single coach that you can think of, almost all of them were at a place that, you know, today in the modern parlance of sports, you would if you were a Packers fan in 1958 when they hired Vince Lombardi, you'd have been like, what, this guy? What's he done? Like, that if you put it here, and then he's, one of the greatest of all time. We're hiring the coach from Texas A&M. It's Bear Bryant. What are we doing? That's, let's be real about, most coaches and their history. So Ross Hodge, I think he'll do great there.
Yeah, I mean, I think going off the McCasland tree is not a bad way to go considering the success that he's having right now, and he's a great coach. I think he would only have great coaches around him. The lack of experience, I think, is certainly something you could point to as perhaps a concern, but the guy has coached a lot of basketball games, just not necessarily at the highest level, so that will be an adjustment, but North Texas – picking him to replace Grant McCasland, I think, says a lot about the guy, considering the job that McCasland did there, that they wanted to keep that going as best as they possibly could. And I think that Ren Baker's a very smart AD. And I know it's hard for fans to trust the process, so to speak, and just trusting it doesn't mean it's always going to work out, but I don't know. I think Ren Baker's got a good head on his shoulders, and I think that he's making the best moves for West Virginia. And obviously, DeVries didn't work out, but it only didn't work out because other people went and wanted him. Another school came in and said, hey, now we want him, and you couldn't hold on to him, and that was unfortunate. Hopefully, he's able to now have a coach in place that can dig his heels in and really build something up and get the pride back to West Virginia basketball. That's something that can be sustainable. But, yeah, I mean, a young guy, certainly some holes on the resume if you were hoping for 10 years at like Drake or Xavier or something like that. But that doesn't mean he won't be successful. So I think, if anything, you should be excited that the search is over. It took a week to find this guy, which is not an eternity, but while the tournament's rolling on in the background and you're seeing Indiana celebrate and all these other schools get their hires in order, I know it was tough to sit out there and not know what the future held. So at least now you know, and I think this is a guy that should be pretty easy to rally around, although I'm sure there's a lot of information digging going on right now for people to just kind of try to figure out who he is and what he's about, and that will all come in due time as well. But, yeah, on paper, I get where Ren Baker was going with this hire, and I trust his ability to make the right hire for West Virginia.
I got to know him when I was doing junior college basketball for a long time in what is a phenomenal region that is like basically the entire eastern half from the border of Paris all the way down to Pasadena and also into that area with San Jacinto and Lee College. He was at Paris. Young coach, this guy's a bulldog, and it is, again, the resume is very similar to Grant McCasland, just not quite as much as far as his years. He played for a national title as the head coach at Midland. Grant McCasland won a national title as the head coach at Midland. He's 192-47, and I'm saying a lot about him because I know him, and I'm happy for him. North Texas, man, they've had Grant McCasland, now Ross Hodge. They're in the NIT semifinals. I hate it for them, but a great opportunity. And West Virginia fans, if you wanted a bigger name or you thought you're going to get a bigger name, you're still stung by the fact that DeVries left so early. He wanted to leave. Ross Hodge wants to be there, and the connection to Ren Baker makes a lot of sense. So there we are with that. Grant McCasland hired Ross Hodge when he took the job at North Texas. That was one of his first hires, so that says quite a bit about what he thinks of Ross Hodge.
Yeah, I mean, as somebody pointed out, he lost a lot of good players to bigger teams through the portal and wasn't exactly dealing with the gold coin, pool that like Scrooge McDuck, is like jumping through in the cartoons. Like that's not what North Texas had at their disposal. It's not what West Virginia really has either. But the point being is that at a smaller school, he got picked apart and still was able to put another team together the following year and have some success. So he knows ball. He's able to adjust, and now he'll have far more resources and backing at his disposal, with all due respect to North Texas. But it's just facts. West Virginia makes more money, has a bigger fan base. So he'll get a little bit of a boost there, and excited to see what he can do. And, yeah, I think that coaching in the Texas JUCOs, it's not like you did that means you're golden, but I do think there is a bit of a attitude and a toughness that you have to survive in those leagues for a few years as he did. So, yeah, I think that you're getting a guy who's going to be blue-collar and tough and get his hands dirty and do all those things that West Virginia would want their basketball coach to do. I'm
happy for him. And again, one of the texts that I got from somebody at West Virginia was, he's my man, I'm fired up. So I'm happy about that. Meanwhile, we have 4 Big 12 teams that are in the Sweet 16. The SEC has their 7, the Big Ten has their 4, and then the ACC has Duke, who might be the best of everybody. They're starting to have press conferences or media sessions as people get ready for the first games tomorrow, then on Friday. And BYU's Kevin Young, what a hire. Remember we talked about that trifecta of what BYU lost Mark Pope, who went to Kentucky because Calipari went to Arkansas, and then, of course, Young from an NBA staff ends up at BYU. So from Newark, BYU coach Kevin Young on the impact of the donor base that is so massive for BYU. If you could show me a school where donor bases don't deserve credit, I'm all ears. That's the starting point. That's the separator. And BYU, we know, guys, is stepping up, and they are right in the middle of what they're doing when it comes to NIL.
Yeah, well, I mean, just given what they paid A.J. DeBonsa reportedly, yeah, and he's also like, the thing is BYU has a massive alumni base, massive alumni base. So if they just based it off micro donations of people who join the, you can join a collective for, $400 a year and, just pay your thing and you get T-shirts and perks and you can come to the barbecue and all those things up levels, if you're the Cougar level or Super Cougar or whatever they are at BYU, they have those all over the place. Just on that, they could have more NIL than most. And then when you have big time donors like they do, that's going to allow them to do a lot of things now in modern college sports. But yeah, that's the key. You got to have an engaged fan base, not only fan wise but financially.
Yeah, I really hate talking about the money stuff, constantly, but. I mean, what he's saying is just obvious. I mean, yeah, you've got a big supportive fan base that is all in on you, and that definitely helps, and I just think that makes sense, and so he's shouting them out. That's great, and, yeah, they're set up really well to have a lot of success because they're all rowing in one direction. I mean, It's a massive church-based school where they all under the same, except for what, maybe an athlete here and there that's not like, it's not Mormon, but, like, pretty much everybody is. Like, it's not, you go to, like, Notre Dame and some people are Catholic, a lot of people are Catholic, but not like everybody or close to everybody. But I think at BYU, it's like pretty much it's just all across the board for the most part. And so they're all moving in the same direction. When you hear about having like the spine of the school aligned and everybody rowing the same way, I think BYU is a school that's definitely got the ability to do that at an elite level and is doing that already at an elite level to some extent. And they are rubbing their palms together because I think they know that there's already a lot of success that's happening with the opportunities they've been given the last couple of years. And if they keep doing what they're doing with the coaches that they have, they're going to experience a lot more success moving forward. And for some people that didn't want them in the club, so to speak, this is probably what they feared a little bit, was a school of that size and that magnitude and that the amount of resources and those things. You didn't want them because they were a bit of probably a threat in some ways, but here they are, and I think they're going to be winning a lot of games in a lot of different sports, and they've got a couple of really good head coaches in the top 2 spots right now. So, yeah, they're going to be a force to be reckoned with. I don't know, how many conference titles it turns into ultimately, but they made a lot of noise this year, and there's no reason to believe that it can't continue on. So, yeah, I mean, they're going to have the donors more than a lot of other bases because it's just sort of built in, and that's where they really will benefit versus those who have to go the old school traditional route and scratch and claw a bit more to get the nickels out of everybody's pockets.
Imagine where they were just 3 or 4 years ago and where they are now. And they've always been really, I've never thought of them as a group of 5 school. When they were independent, I've always thought of BYU as a power school, and now they're in the middle of it. And which school, since all the realignment hell began, which school that has joined this conference brings the biggest fan base to games whenever they travel? Texas Tech has a good job. Others do a good job. KU maybe in basketball. BYU, football, basketball, doesn't matter. They are there. They lined up the first time they played, and it was before they joined the Big 12, the year before they played Baylor here. They lined up and down the Brazos River where there's a huge area where people dock boats and they play Frisbee golf and all that kind of stuff. They had a massive showing up and down the Brazos River.
Oh, yeah. And look, here's the other thing that's it's kind of unique to schools like Notre Dame and BYU is you can have a massive turnout where people didn't have to drive that far because you have fans. Like, great, so
They're
massive
everywhere.
religion.
Yeah.
They're everywhere. So, yeah, there are some people coming in from Provo or Salt Lake City that fly in for a game or drive in for a game. But there's also people from just all around wherever you are, that are BYU grads and fans that show up. So, like, they can sell out their allotment just by the people who live in the state in most places.
Yeah, I mean, there's a massive fan base there that is all in on BYU, so that's going to, again, bode really well for them, and that's not something that is going to change. I mean, that's going to be there. So Kalani Sitake, Kevin Young, whoever, I think that they're all really probably feeling right now like they're in a great spot. Obviously, you got to do all the groundwork and things like that, but in terms of support, which other schools do struggle with, they don't have to worry about that. In terms of the financials, which a lot of other schools have to worry about, they don't have to so much worry about that. And so that's two big things that are not on your plate as much as they're on others' plates that are great, things to have in their corner and definitely propels them to a different level than some other schools. So it's working really well. I mean, they were this close to being a college football playoff team and a Sweet 16 team. Mm-hmm. And I do want to say, though, I didn't get around to this last week because it didn't dawn on me we were talking about it. I think one of the most refreshing things I heard at the Combine last week was Tyler Batty talking about how when asked about the playoff snub, if you will, because a lot of people went all in on they got screwed and this and that. And I think there's a conversation you could have of like, to an extent, yes, but I always felt like, well, you got to win your games, right? Like that ultimately is, if you're BYU or you're certain other schools, like you do ride a razor-thin line that others don't, that you don't necessarily get the benefit of the doubt. So when they lost a couple times, they cracked that door open for people to have their doubts and then to put them in a position where they didn't have control of their own destiny. And it was just super refreshing after hearing quite a few people over the last few months complain about they got screwed. The guy who actually plays on the team goes, we should have just won our games. And that was just, I loved that because that's kind of how I felt about it was, yeah, you have a case, but at the same time, like, shouldn't have lost, game B. And that's exactly what he said as well. And he was a really fun guy to talk to. So, yeah, that was part of his interview that I really enjoyed was just the honesty and, just saying like, hey, we should have won our games and we wouldn't have had to even have a conversation about it.
I don't know if that was put up, Andrew and or Emery, the clips that we put up along with everything else that we do. We need to have that as a stinger the next time there's a controversy on somebody getting left out of a tournament or whatever else, because Craig, you're exactly right. We had a chance. We lost a couple of games. We blew it. He didn't say it exactly like that, but pretty close to it.
He put it at their feet rather than saying it was the committee's fault or the boogeyman SEC or whoever. He just said like, yeah, we shouldn't have lost a second game and we would have been in that sucker and they would have been. So he's a great player that's moving on, but he was a joy to talk to, and there's just a lot of good things going on with them right now. Obviously, we'll see how far they can take it in basketball, but to have the donors, which is where this all started, is definitely a feather in their cap that others wish that they could enjoy as much as they are right now.
Richard Pitino, hell of a job at New Mexico. He now is at Xavier, where Sean Miller was, and now he's at Texas. And, of course, before that was at Arizona. He's the new head coach for Xavier. I saw John Fanta make a comment. You guys tell me if you agree with this or not. I've tried to get John on the last really for a while, but, man, he's locked in right now.
Is he busy? Is he doing something right now?
Yeah, he's covering wrestling. And they just had their championship, so maybe he's available. He said one of the things that if Richard Pitino, if Sean Miller had won a national title at Xavier, if he wins a national title at Texas, which of those two schools, now Texas hasn't won a national title in basketball, but which of those two schools would that have meant more?
Xavier.
That's what he said.
Yeah.
It's a basketball school. That's kind of like, that's what they do. That's their.
I think it's a bit more natural as well.
I think Texas fans would be like, they've been close. They had TJ Ford, the Final Four, Rick Barnes, and before that others, but Chris Beard, and of course with what they got with the Elite Eight with Rodney Terry, but it's a basketball school.
Yeah, but I mean, I think if you gave them if the, sports wizards came and said, like, we'll cast a spell, you'll never win a basketball title, but you will win several,
you're talking about Texas.
Texas.
Oh, no question.
You'll win football titles
Buddy, ask them next year, what would you rather have? They're going to say football on 100% of the bracket of the ballots. Yeah,
absolutely.
Like,
no doubt.
Like one guy would be like, well, it would be kind of cool. Then they're like, shut up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're taking the football title 10 times out of 10 times. Xavier would take. I mean, they don't have the option, obviously, but they would take the basket. If there was a choice, I think they'd take the basketball title 10 out of 10 times. So
they would.
I think that's where there is. But yeah, it would be a massive deal. And will be for whoever hoists the trophy this year. But, yeah, I mean, Texas is certainly pouring a lot of resources in that direction. They've made a big hire. We'll see. That is a hell of a league when you look at the head coaches already. But then you add in now a Sean Miller and just another shark in the waters there in the SEC. But, yeah, I mean, Texas will always – the default will be they want a football title above all else.
John Rothstein was the one who reported that, but many others did as well. They are now, the Patinos, in the same conference, the Big East, with Xavier and St. John's. Will Wade, what a run he had after he was let go at LSU, forced out, goes to McNeese, had a great run, took him to the tournament, won the first round. He took out the entire front page of the Lake Charles American Press to thank McNeese State for his time there, now the head coach at NC State. You see sometimes an ad, a half-page or full-page ad, thank you very much, whatever. He bought the entire front page of the American Press. Good for him.
Did that send? I mean, what, he spent like $1.25? No, I'm just kidding. I don't knock newspapers. I'm not. That was a cheap dig. I'm sorry.
That was not even nice.
No, I mean that's no. I respect and love the newspapers.
That's a few $1,000s. Yeah,
but the truth does hurt.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. No, I mean that's very cool. That's the honorable thing to do, and he definitely spent more than $1.25 because of those full color shots right there. So I'd imagine that was definitely a little bit pricier, but that's awesome. I don't know how much the Lake Charles Press gets around down there, but I bet a lot of people got their eyes on that because it's a good-looking cover. And, that's obviously a big story down there, the success that he brought them. And I think he's handled himself pretty well based on just what I've seen. I mean, obviously I haven't been following every footbeat of his, since the announcement was made, but I think from what we have seen, he's been very cordial in his exit, and I think they understand it. Obviously, you're making a move upwards, and thanks for the memories and good luck to you kind of thing. And obviously he's thanking them for the memories made there and wishing them good luck as well. So a mutual parting of the ways and, good luck to McNeese and trying to get that thing, operating at a high level post his tenure there. I
don't know how much that costs, but I do know this. When we do the full-page ad for those all-stars, the academic kids, the full-page ad, just $3,000 or $4,000. And that's on – like the back page of one of usually the back page of the first section. Of course, things have changed in newspaper. And so that's a pretty good amount. I don't know what the home front page, and I don't know how many newspapers would do that. Yeah. But in that case, McNeese surely did. So the Players Era Festival, it's a tournament that opens up in the early part of the basketball season. They'll have 18 teams next year. They're going to expand to 32 in 2026. And it's a non-NCAA tournament event, and of course there aren't many of those, but it will now pay millions in NIL to players. It debuted with 8 this past the start of this season that's going on now as they're trying to defend or at least crown a champion. Baylor is in it. Alabama, Auburn, Creighton, Gonzaga, Houston, Iowa State, Kansas, Michigan, Notre Dame, St. John's, Syracuse, A&M, Tennessee, St. Joseph's, and they'll add more, of course, to that list. It's a hell of a deal, and they will now expand that from 8 to 16 and then 32.
Look, great for the players. I'm excited for them.
When's the last time we said something wasn't good for the players? I mean, which is it's all overdue. But I was just trying to think of every story we have is well, that's great for the players. But, it's just funny how the pendulum has swung.
Has there been anything in the last 2 to 4 years where it wasn't great for the players?
You didn't automatically win your lawsuit for a 7th year of eligibility if you're like a handful of people. I mean, beyond that, I think that they've pretty much gotten every single thing they could possibly want at this point. But, that is great for the players, and there's enough money to go around, obviously. I don't know. I'm not probably a big enough hoops head to have too firm of an opinion on this, so I'll default to you guys on your wants and desires to see a 32-team tournament early on in the season. But I think it sounds like a cool idea. I don't know how much it messes with all the other tournaments that are going on or your preseason schedule or whatnot. But just on the surface, I think it's great for the players to make some more money. And Vegas is obviously a big hotbed for a marquee event like this, so it should be a cool thing to go to, especially if your team sticks around for a while. But yeah, I mean, what does this do for you guys as far as pull?
It's a big deal. I mean, it's money. That's what it's all about. You can recruit to certain programs that are going to be in it. Now that's 32. That's a lot. And I don't think, did I mention one school that was not like a dude? San Diego State, Rutgers, Oregon. These are all teams that are in the have been in the tournament or will be. St. Joe's, which has got a great history in basketball too. Oregon won the first one earlier this year. They beat Alabama in the championship game. So they even have off to the side. They have one that's a women's field with like South Carolina, UCLA, Texas, who are three of the number ones. I think three of the number one or number two seeds right now in women's basketball. Paul, we're going to play in that game. You want to come play for us? Money goes straight to you.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's
we're talking about everything going to play. It's the players' era.
Yeah.
So that's what it's called. So it's
absolutely, yeah.
Look, it's also another thing that, like, I don't know if it necessarily saves you money, but it's money that you don't have to personally pay, right? Like, so you can.
It's like live golf in basketball.
Yeah, I mean, like, hey, I mean, you don't like.
Well, that's not going to bode well for its long-term future. Then.
I mean, again, this is any event that I can say, like, oh, the players are going to get X amount of dollars, and I don't have to pick up the phone and be like, hey, money bags, donor guy, we need this much money for these 8 players. If I don't have to do that, like, that to me is a bonus as a coach.
Yep.
How naive you are to think that they're not. But
even still, like, if it's just a little bit of money I don't have to make a phone call for.
I think the problem is, Paul, is that when people start making money, they make that money. They don't expect to ever make any less money. They always expect to make more. So this is on top of what they were getting, not in place of. Yeah. But,
no, not in place. But like, it's still one phone call. Maybe I don't have to make.
I think the group stage stuff, the way they're going to set it up, is all interesting. They got some soccer flavor if you're doing the group stage like it looks like they're doing. So I guess, persistent themes of soccer, especially overseas and big Premier League and things like that, and the lines of comparison drawn to college football, college sports that some have been doing for years now. I mean, you're seeing more of that sort of leak over. I don't think we ever get to the point, because I just don't think it makes any sense business-wise to do the relegation stuff. My biggest thing with that, and I've still never heard anybody, even like the creator of the whole idea to begin with, explain how relegation would work and how you're supposed to fundraise with relegation. So that's why I just don't think that makes any sense. It's like, hey, give us a bunch of money so we can get back into the top league, and then if we don't, though, then what happens? Like, you can't guarantee that. You know what I'm saying? So like, you can't guarantee even your schedule the next couple of years because you're relegated. So then you can't guarantee when you'll be back playing the big. I just think that would be a messy part of this that would need to be cleaned up.
Yeah, and that's the other part of it is, okay, so the people who came up with it said, okay, well, these 60-plus schools will never be relegated. And then these schools who are not part of that but just on the outside could or couldn't be. So why would you agree to be relegated if you weren't already, like, if you're already not in a relegation thing?
Yeah.
Like, why would you agree to it unless it was your only hope?
Yeah.
Like, that's what they'd have to do, but
you're willingly putting your head on the chopping block, basically.
You're never going to get Ohio State and Michigan and Texas and Georgia and
they're not even going to beat them.
And schools like that, or any school in the Big 12 right now. Like, you wouldn't get any ACC, any Power 4 school to say, like, oh, no, we'll do that.
Yeah,
we'll do that.
Yeah,
like,
it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Like, look, Michigan has had 4 bad years in a row, right? Michigan could have 4 bad years in a row. Do you think they'd ever agree to be like, you know what, we need to take our medicine. We should be playing down a level. No, they're never going to do that.
I wouldn't. I don't know why you ever would.
I do think there are some ideas that trickle over, and I mean, group stage is not exclusive to soccer, but it is kind of, that's where I know it from, and so
that's the only time I'd ever heard of it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's been used in like pro wrestling, stuff like that. So I've seen it kind of applied elsewhere for tournaments and things like that. But it's very much a soccer flavored theme to the tournament to do it that way. And with all the teams you have, it's kind of just makes sense. So just interesting to see that because of all the lines of comparison that get drawn between the college sports now, especially football and soccer overseas.
We have some college stuff we'll get to in another segment. One more story. In fact, who was it that asked about what did we think? Stephen Heindel about St. Francis. Yesterday, opting to go down to Division III. They'll have this year, they'll have next year to be in part of the NAC, the Northeast Conference, and then they opt down. This is from Matt Brown, who's a great friend of the show. Extra Points does an incredible job. He's the one that mentioned a couple of weeks ago in an article that he's been hearing. It's not if, but when some teams are going to opt down. Eventually, he never gave the schools because he didn't want to, well, he was being probably smart there. But St. Francis is one that he'd heard from a lot of different people that were discussing. This is from their president. Now, read this and think about where we are now in college athletics. The board and I have concerned about student-athlete experience for many years. The geography of our conference is huge. Our students travel either to Chicago or to Boston or to points in between. That's a lot of time not spent on campus, developing friendships or in the classroom. This change allows our students to be present on campus, lets their friends attend more of their home and away games. The decision is about creating and maintaining community and allowing our student athletes to thrive in the classroom and their chosen sport. How many people really want that? How many people realize that's actually what you go to college for, which now, of course, is not the way it is in many places. I'm just glad it's refreshing that he actually said it, and that's why they're making the move.
Yeah, I also think, it's just obvious. They're not Ohio State. Like, they're playing by a completely different set of rules, and so they got to deal with it a different way, and they don't have the money to just frivolously burn to maintain the opportunity to just have a chance in March Madness. Like, it's great they made March Madness. It'll be sad if that's the last time they even have a crack at it. That's one of the things you're sacrificing, and obviously that's a really big deal for that type of school. But, I think when you hear the paring down or the not relegation, now we're talking about that soccer stuff, but when you think about the schools that could be pulling the plug, so to speak, on trying to compete at a certain level, who else is going to – it's going to be the St. Francis's. It's going to be the schools like that it's not going to be power conference schools. It's not ever close going to be that way, at least for several years now. I think it's just very unfortunate. I think especially in light of making a run to the tournament and then shortly thereafter you're basically saying, like, well, I hope you enjoy that because it's probably never going to happen again. I think that sucks. But I totally get it. I totally understand it. And the whole reasoning here, the main reason, number one, is money. Like, if you had the money and you had the alumni size to be able to hang around and pay and compete the way others do, then you'd probably do it. But it is a tough decision you have to make, and yet it's a totally understandable decision. And the stuff that he's talking about, that's just real life. Like, we get too blinded by the corporatization of all this stuff, and we gawk at, oh, look at this new list from On3. It's the 10 richest schools. Oh, my God. And we just money. And we focus on all the big schools, but there's the St. Francis of the world that they're not built. They're built like a regular-ass college. It's just like there to educate and have a little bit of fun in sports and all of that. And so they're going to keep doing what they've been doing and doing the obvious and acknowledging that, hey, this is not a game that we're really able to afford to play right now.
How many now will it make it easier for others who are wanting to do this because somebody else has done it? Does this allow someone like, man, I don't know.
I don't know, because it gets talked about like it's some big like scare of like all these schools are going to shutter.
No, it doesn't.
I don't know. There might be like two others that are better off because of this. It might just be St. Francis. I really have no earthly idea on the plans of schools like this, but I do think it's understandable, and I think for whatever they lose and maybe a March Madness opportunity, I do think their athletes will probably be pretty happy that they're not, they're being college athletes basically. Yeah. I think there will be some people that actually look at that and go, wow, that's really refreshing.
That's what I said.
Yeah, I know, but I don't think there will be some gang of schools. I can't predict that there will be a bunch of others that follow suit, but there might be
36 of them.
Yeah, there might be.
At least not right away. They have a campus of just 2,000 students, very small town. One of the smallest schools in all of Division I. They made their decision. Matt Brown had another story that came out about it, and so I wanted to share that quote that he got from their president. Our guest lineup today with a couple of NFL draft analysts. We'll have Eric Galko, who runs the East-West Shrine Bowl, in just a moment. Also today, John Cooper, about an hour from now. We also have Grant McCasland, Texas Tech men's basketball coach, who will join us. And, well, we have a lot to get to, including today. We did Miami yesterday, North Carolina. We'll look at their schedule. And John Wilner on Stanford and the decision that Andrew Luck made in changing football coaches and what does it mean going forward. That and more. This is 365 Sports. PettyClinicalOT.com. Dr. Kent Petty can help you become the high-performance man that you want to be, need to be, used to be. As you get older, just like some that, unfortunately, no matter what, have high blood pressure. Now, some can create that in their body by how they are, but sometimes it's part of your system. Sometimes issues with your heart. So all that, blood, cholesterol. So same thing with Father Time and low testosterone. Either you are okay or you're not. And if you're not, you have symptoms, including your energy's not the same. You're not as focused and locked in as you used to be. Yeah, that's going to happen as you get older anyway, but a lot of times it doesn't affect a lot of men. 1 out of every 3 or 4 men, though, it does. Sex drive and so much more. Dr. Kent Petty has a business to help you find out if that is your problem, and if it is, he has something for you to help get your testosterone level back to where it needs to be. Contact them, PettyClinicalOT.com. Tell them your symptoms. Tell them you heard it from me. They will lock you in to go get your blood work. They get the results, look at them, be in touch with you, might be fine. And then again, it might be that your cholesterol, or your testosterone, is too low. Dr. Kent Petty at PettyClinicalOT.com.
Month at Allen Samuels in Waco. Right now, drive home a 2025 Ram 1500 Laramie Crew Cab or Ram Lone Star Crew Cab, both with massive $15,000 off MSRP. Looking for unbeatable value? Drive home a Ram 1500 Tradesman Quad Cab starting at just $35,995, or upgrade to a Tradesman Crew Cab for only $37,995. These deals won't last long. Hurry to Allen Samuels today.
Come by. Let's be friends.
Hundreds of things that can affect our sleep, but what's affecting yours? Sleep Doctor's home sleep test brings the precision of a sleep lab into the comfort of home to help you get answers and unlock a lifetime of great sleep. Start now at sleepdoctor.com/TV.
I'll never get used to this.
Whatever it is you wrangle, whatever seeds you sow, no matter what you nurture or what you choose to grow, at Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, we're proud to protect all Texans.
is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
365 Sports will have Eric, and then we do have Eric Galko, busiest man in the world. He runs the East-West Shrine Game and also is an NFL draft analyst, and what he does, always keeping up with not just now but also the future, joins us on 365 Sports. Thanks for your time. So we were in Frisco, and the Big 12 had their pro days, and one of the things that jumped out is, I don't know, did you hear about Oklahoma State cornerback Corey Black running like a 4.31? He's got some lineage. His brother plays at UT, but when it's the pro days, does a 40 mean as much then as it if you were at the combine?
Absolutely. And I think for, one of the interesting parts of the draft process is that there's always pros and cons to every aspect of it. And sometimes not being at the combine, but testing well at a pro day in mid-March, every NFL executive gets what's called an APT report at the end of the week showing who tested in pro days that week. And sometimes the GM, you're kind of flipping through your notes on a Friday afternoon being like, who the heck is this guy that ran a 4.31? And sometimes those pro day standout guys that weren't combine guys actually get a bigger bump in the draft process too. I know a couple years ago now, Kobe Turner of Wake Forest was a guy that played in the Shrine Bowl, wasn't a combine guy, to a little bit of surprise, but tested near Aaron Donald level at the Wake Forest pro day. He ended up having 20, 25 NFL team visits, went to be a third-round pick despite not being a combine guy. So certainly NFL GMs get a benefit of kind of learning some guys that maybe weren't at the combine that test well in the pro day circuit. It can really help those guys.
What was the biggest buzz that you heard coming out of that combine?
I think certainly Shedeur Sanders and being there and being present in the media was certainly the big, notable from the media standpoint too. I think really it's a chance. The Big 12 Pro Day is still in its infancy, right? It's only 2 years into the process now. And I think NFL teams, executives, scouts, and colleges themselves are trying to figure out what the value is. And I think there's enough really strong players in the Big 12 Pro Day that NFL scouts were glad it existed and got a lot of stuff out of it. But I think the Big 12 is still struggling to find a way to get those Tet McMillan of Arizona-like players to perform at the Big 12 Pro Day and not at a private workout. Or I'll be at Colorado's Pro Day workout April 4th next weekend, and they can be at the Big 12 Pro Day as well too. So I think it's still in its infancy, still year 2, but not as many really notable players that are testing for the first time. Certainly some guys tested really well, Corey Black being one of them, but no real top-end players that stood out that maybe rose their value or perception from a mid-round pick to an early-round pick. That just hasn't happened at the Big 12 Pro Day.
Eric, as you said, it's in its infancy and lacking that star power. So what do you think of the idea on the surface? Because there are a bunch of schools that don't have 7 guys to pull in 32 teams to come down to Ames, Iowa, and check the teams out. So do you have any ideas on your own or just any thoughts on kind of what you've seen from these 2 years and how good of an idea it is or what could be added onto it?
Hey, as a guy who runs an event in the draft process, I got plenty of ideas, man. I've told the NFL League office of Big 12, some of them as well. I think the big one is they've got to make it worthwhile for players. We see it at the Shrine Bowl and all-star games. I believe you've got to get the players to be bought in. You can't just be mad and hold your fist up, be like, why isn't Tet McMillan here? Why isn't Shedeur Sanders throwing? You've got to make it worthwhile for them. We've had some success doing that at the Shrine Bowl, getting guys like Shedeur to at least be there. And I think they need to have a focus on, okay, how do we make this worthwhile? Because I'll tell you guys, I spoke to 2 Big 12 general managers this morning, and they're not huge fans of the Big 12 Pro Day either because it's a pros and cons. They don't like the fact that colleges and NFL clubs are not going to their campus and talking to their coaches and talking about next year's guys a little bit early. So to make up for that exchange, they want the Big 12 Pro to be really, really worth it. And it just hasn't been there yet. So I think the overarching idea is go to the players that aren't coming, ask why, find out how it can make it worthwhile for them, and make the player experience great. That's worked for the Shrine Bowl, and hopefully the Big 12 can steal some of those ideas.
I wondered about that without Travis Hunter there or whatever. They got to find a way. Yormark's really good about marketing and sitting down maybe with all the coaches or the whoever. But yeah, you got to have everybody at full throttle. To me, Texas Tech had their own pro day, and obviously Colorado has one April the 4th. What will they when they sit down on a campus at a pro day? I remember one time, Eric, I was able to sit in with the coaches, the Baylor coaches with the NFL scouts about injuries, toughness, commitment. And there's something, I didn't ever report any of that. There was a lot of stuff said in that meeting that was really good grit for anyone who wanted to be interested in a player.
Yeah, and that happened throughout the season as well, too. So in some respects, a lot of that character background stuff, which can be really, off the record from a media standpoint, but certainly important for NFL teams to get a sense of who these guys are as people, as they've grown in their college career. Super, super important. And a lot of that happens before the pro day, in season. When NFL scouts go on campus, they're kind of watching practice. They're really on campus for those meetings. So you shouldn't be hearing about that stuff for the first time at a pro day. It can be a good chance for cross-check scouts, national scouts who only go to see a campus. Maybe they go to Baylor once every year or maybe once every 2 years. So they don't have the same perspective. Getting that in a pro day can really help. But I think it's those aspects. It's also making sure these guys feel healthy when they're there as well, too. The NFL scouts are going to be there and college is going to be there, too. And they're just going to go through the bare minimum unless it's worth their time. So those insights can happen at the pro day and before. They're definitely not happening the same way at the Big 12 pro day. But there has to be creative ideas to allow that same kind of access, right? Find a way to have a whole day where NFL scouts can meet with personnel teams in a big group setting or small group settings and go to the players. I've learned at the Shrine Bowl, you can't just ask NFL teams, what do you want, right? It's almost like the Steve Jobs and Apple. Like, you got to tell the customer what they want and have them enjoy it. I think the Big 12 Pro Day can steal some of that idea. Think of their own creative ideas. Tell NFL teams what you think they want. Tell colleges what they think they want and have them say yes or no after the fact and not just ask, hey, how can we do this at a baseline level? So I think the NFL access to college teams is minimized. The reason for players, the top-end talent to perform is minimized. And the Big 12 Pro Day, while still a great idea, I still believe in the idea, has to kind of be more aggressive in tweaking that.
Yeah, they got to make the coaches want to come out, I would say, too. Like, everybody needs to get on the bus or the plane and come to Frisco and fill up the Star. They've got plenty of room, Eric, as you know. I'm a little curious. We talked to Ollie Gordon last week, and it was an awesome talk with him. He was a Heisman finalist. I mean, he had all this, and then Oklahoma State fell apart. I feel like when I see him ranked that he is bearing the brunt of everyone else and not what Ollie Gordon does. Is that fair that he might be now a bit of a steal because he's also in a running back class that is just chock full of dudes?
Yeah, a lot of great players in running back class. I think for Ollie Gordon, one of the questions teams have is, can he offer a lot of value on those third down pass catching, pass blocking? And I think he can, but when you're not, if NFL teams don't view you as a surefire starter, your draft grade gets a little bit weird, right? Because if you're like, hey, I'm not a starter, but I'm a really good pass catcher, like Tyrone Tracy at Purdue, who ended up starting for the Giants said, I'm not sure if the guy's a starter, but he can definitely help us on third down. Those kind of guys will still go in the mid rounds despite not being a true starter. I think for Ollie Gordon, teams have questions. Okay, if he's not a starter, what is he for us? And I think he's shown that in the draft process, whether it's the All-Star game circuit or at the combine. He knows how to pass block. He's done it in college. He's a longer running back. He can play in space and work as a pass catcher as well. But do teams trust him at that level? I know he didn't test great prior. That doesn't really help his case either. So I think he's kind of a victim of, if not a starter, kind of how does he fit in a running back rotation? That's what NFL teams are kind of worrying about right now. And I think the character stuff, the incident that happened before the year is going to be there. And then I always tell people, NFL teams don't want to punish players, don't care to punish players for their past. They're curious, what's he going to be like in the future? How does past behavior predict future behavior too? And I think Ollie Gordon, from what I've heard, has answered a lot of those questions, but certainly it'll be lingering as teams make that ultimate decision on draft weekend.
You mentioned Corey Black at the beginning of the segment. He played high school football less than 15 minutes from here, and great guy. Obviously popped the nice 40 time there. Just what stood out about the results there and kind of how that plays into the overall profile, and your thoughts on Corey Black and where he sort of stands in this whole big picture?
Yeah, I think Corey Black, for us to be candid, as well as most NFL teams, was viewed as kind of that priority free agent type player. Hey, the college film was good. He's an experienced player. He's played a couple spots in that defensive backfield, but not a guy you trust as an early round player in the NFL draft. I think the testing shows NFL teams, okay, can this guy help us tomorrow on special teams? Can he get down on punt at a high level? Can he help us maybe as a returner in a pinch too? Can that speed translate over to our scheme if you're playing an off cover 3 team where your corners have to get back? Can he fit in that role as well? So I think what testing like that does is it allows you to go back and say, can this guy play a role now on special teams because he's a great athlete? And number 2, hey, maybe let's review this film with the lens of this guy being even a better athlete than we thought. And again, if you run those particular schemes, maybe Corey Black's a bit more appealing. So I think for him, he's still going to be fighting for a draft position, no doubt. Despite that testing, he can't change what his college film showed, but I think he can force NFL teams to be a bit more creative in how they may want to use him, because NFL teams don't want to pass on elite talents like him.
All right, Garmin Randolph, you had a note about him. That was you, Eric, that you had a note about what he did. Versatile. We had him on. He was unbelievable. It was an incredible, transparent interview about his career and also playing at Baylor. What do you see in him? Because I didn't know where he might play. So give us your idea about what pros think about him.
Yeah, I'm not sure Baylor knew where he might play either in his college career, because he's played a whole bunch of spots. And for a guy who's built, he tells me he could beat Draymond Green in a pickup basketball game. I probably disagree with that, but that's how athletic he really is. And he could play in the NBA tomorrow as a 6'6", 260-pound mover, and he showed that in his testing in the draft process. I think the issue for him for NFL teams is, okay, if he's a great pass rush talent, why hasn't he produced as a sack player? Why hasn't he produced in tackles for loss in his college career? And I think it's a tough question for him to answer, and why a guy, despite his elite talents, won't be going in the top 3 rounds. But I think if you watch the film, you're saying, hey, he was in a rotation for a year there with Steve Linton as a junior. Hey, he's playing more in space and in the flat coverage, not actually rushing the passer as much as you think. I think over half of his snaps, more than half of his snaps in his senior season this past year, were actually dropping coverage, not pass rushing on third down situations too. So you kind of watch the film, you're saying, hey, this guy in a different world is a 9-10 sack a year type of player in college, and could be a guy that'd be the first, second round talent. I think he plays career differently. That could be a case too. So for NFL teams, I think Garmin showed he's going to be a slam dunk draft pick at some respect, but the question of how early will be how comfortable teams are, and kind of assuming his athletic ability and his character, which is very strong, can translate to producing in the NFL. Because if he's going to make a roster and be a top 5-6 round draft pick, he's got to play on third downs as a rookie. He's got to show that he can play 5-tech, 6-eye, as well as playing outside early on to be part of rotation too. And I think he can do that, but NFL teams have to get close to that too.
Where do you feel the NFL depth is in the Big 12 right now, like on a scale of 1 to 10? Like, are they? I mean, obviously the SEC is a 10. The Big 10, might be maybe a 9, because they've kind of like loaded into a couple of places right now. But where are they, like, in that when it comes to feeding the league, not only just with volume, but with guys who can stick?
Yeah, I think depth-wise, it's still one of the strongest on a team-by-team basis. The Big 12 is going to have almost every team will have a draft pick this year. That's not the case for even the SEC or the Big 10 or the ACC either, too. I think the coaching, the philosophy, the desire to win at every one of those programs, and the ability to win at every Big 12 program really stands out when you look at the portal. Even schools like Texas Tech, who had a strong year, they had maybe the best portal class of any team in the country, right? So I think the Big 12 can have this rotating group of top-tier talent. And all those teams at the bottom this year feel like they're on the way up. Arizona had a great portal season as well. Colorado is not going to go anywhere either with their new additions. So I still think in terms of depth on a team-by-team basis, it's among the strongest too. And I think the success these Big 12 teams of all having different identities and alluring different transfers from the FCS level or the G5 level, or kind of bounce back guys from different programs at the Power 5 level, it's showing up every week. And as we're scouting for even next year's draft class, you can kind of see, hey, Arizona's got a lot of guys. Hey, Colorado is not going to be devoid of talent. Iowa State, just met with them earlier this morning too. They've got 5-6 players who'll be draft picks again next year. Maybe no Jaden Higgins or Jalen Knoll, but a lot of guys as well. So I think start with the Big 12 in terms of team-by-team basis is probably more consistent, higher standard deviation, or I guess a lower standard deviation than the SEC or Big 10. But I think seeing those top-tier teams, the teams that finish the 10-2, 11-1, and those guys having 7, 8, 9 draft picks compared to the Bamas and the Texas of the world, that'll be the final straw for the Big 12 to be at that 8 or 9 level. So I'd say 7 or 8, which I think is pretty high, but they're not far away from being a 9-10 type conference.
So Colorado will have their pro day. We definitely won't talk to you again before then. So where do your eyes go at pro day for Colorado? Is it all about Shedeur doing something in particular? Is it other guys that maybe don't get talked about as much? What's on the plate for you, so to speak, when it comes to the Buffaloes?
Yeah, I think like most people, I'll be watching Kevin Stefanski, Andrew Berry, Joe Shane, Brian Daboll with the Browns and Giants, and where are they at in relation to Deion Sanders and Shedeur Sanders first and foremost. But I think one of the cool things about Shedeur having this workout is that Will Shepard, Jimmy Horn, LeJontay Wester, all 3 receivers, along with Travis Hunter, are going to work out as well. And I talk to players a lot and agents about the idea that, hey, there's kind of this gravitational pull when you have a top player, especially a quarterback like Shedeur Sanders, because every NFL GM is going to watch every snap of Shedeur Sanders this draft cycle, which means they're going to see every snap of Will Shepherd, LeJontay Wester, and Jimmy Horn. So all of these Colorado players, especially on offense, and then with Travis Hunter on defense, are going to get so many eyeballs, not just from this workout, but as teams review the film. And every year I hear it, hey, I was watching so-and-so player. I couldn't believe how good this guy was. Let's draft this guy in the later rounds. BYU with Zach Wilson a couple years ago was a great example. Trevor Lawrence and Clemson, a great example. Other receivers on those offenses got drafted because NFL GMs and decision makers saw that film. So I think it's a real, when Cam Ward mentioned the other day that he did his Miami Pro Day and worked out there because he wanted to give receivers his extra light, and same thing for Shedeur Sanders, it really does have an impact. So I'll be watching Jimmy Horn, Will Shepherd, LeJontay Wester for sure, guys that played in the Shrine Bowl. Cameron Silman-Craig, who's a scout favorite, who's a really hardworking guy, came from Jackson State with Shedeur and Dion, and really had a great college career there as well, too, among other Colorado players, and seeing how they're doing as well. And then no doubt I'll be talking to Dion and his staff about the 2026 class, because they're going to have 5, 6, 7 draft picks again next year.
Eric, do you know of any NFL team that does not like Shedeur Sanders for any reason?
Team-wise, no. I think as people got to know him, he is a very disarmingly honest guy. Mm-hmm. And I think there are some people that would say, hey, I don't want to coach him. I personally think a lot of those I don't want to coach him comes from a fear of not understanding who he is and how to work with him. But I don't think any NFL team that I've ever spoken with said, I don't like his character. I don't like who he is as a person. I don't like his attitude toward things. That's just not what you get from talking to Shedeur Sanders. I can respect that some coaches may say, hey, the way he plays won't fit us. I can say some coaches deep down saying, hey, the way I coach may not work for him in the same way. But again, I don't want to speak for every NFL team in terms every NFL scout or coach or personnel person. But I can tell you that every NFL team would like to have Shedeur Sanders in their building in some respects. They may value him differently, but he is not off boards. He is not a major character guy. He is much more of a scheme and a cultural fit than anything else.
Would it shock you at this point if the Titans don't take Cam Ward?
Yes. If you had asked me at the East-West Shrine Bowl and talking with teams there, and Cam Ward was only training about 30 minutes away in Fort Worth during the Shrine Bowl was going on, I would have told you then Cam Ward's going first overall, and I think Shedeur Sanders will be the second or third pick in the draft to some team, and that really hasn't changed. Cam Ward's a special person, player. I've gotten to know him the last 3 years, from Washington State to Miami, and talking with his family and Calvin and Patrice's parents, who are great role models for him and great inspirations for him too. He's a pretty special guy, and it'd be hard for me. You told me a year ago, I decided taking Cam Ward in the top 4 or 5 of last year's draft too. I think NFL teams in hindsight would say the same thing. So the Tennessee Titans are very lucky to be picking first overall and have a chance at Cam Ward. And I think he can change the identity of the team differently than Shedeur Sanders, but have the same kind of impact as a person on and off the field.
Eric, do you want to know how to get inside the Sanders bubble? Tell Shiloh, you can lie to him, that you have video of Dion running the 40. Have you seen this clip of him questioning Dion's 4.2 because there's no video, and then Dion goes into Picasso, and that he didn't have to practice to learn how to paint? Have you seen that?
I have. I love it because Shiloh's right. There's no video. There's no video. There's no Wilt 100-point game. There's no Deion Sanders video. I'm with Shiloh on this one.
Actually, Shiloh told us last week. He's like, I know about Jesus. I got more documentation on Jesus. That was his thing. Yeah, he wants it bad. Now, there's no video of that, and there's also no video of Bo Jackson, right? Those are the two most legendary 40s, right? Yeah. But there's no video of them. It's just. Well, I mean, it might be true, but it's lore to a lot of people.
I think the one that people wouldn't believe nowadays is Calvin Johnson when he was at the NFL Combine. I guess it was 2011 maybe. And he wasn't going to run the 40. He really hadn't trained too much for it. Kind of something about 3 weeks before. And he didn't have shoes with him. And he borrowed a teammate's shoes to run the 40. And that 6'4", 220 ran a 4.2 something, 4.3 something. That story without video, and you could Google that and find that video too. But without video, that'd be the same kind of lore as Deion Sanders and Bo Jackson and Wilt Chamberlain too. It's crazy.
Yeah, what was he, 6'5", 230, 225, 230, Calvin Johnson? Just a freak show. Man, it's getting close. We're almost in April. We got a little bit, 4 or 5 days left in April. Eric, in the NFL draft rooms, or when the teams are surfing the country, they're going to pro days, they got all these, bringing guys in. Where are they with their draft board, and when do they start to place and piece that together?
It's a great question, and teams really have kind of 3 windows when they have meet as a whole staff, scouts and coaches, to kind of start building their quote-unquote draft board. There's right after the season, before kind of the All-Star games, that first, second week of January, all NFL teams will meet. Most NFL teams require their scouts put their grades in around December, either 15th or the 31st in that window, and then they'll meet as a staff in early January. And then they'll meet again after the All-Star games, just before the Combine. And those meetings are kind of really to be, okay, where are we at right now? Let's get a good sense of where we like these players, how they're graded, get the coaches involved to watch these guys. And a lot of teams focus a lot on that piece of it because you don't want the Combine or pro days to affect things too much. So they want to really get a good feel of what their board is, how they grade these players. Again, a lot of times before talking to them outside of the All-Star game, we get into who these guys are as players before the NFL Combine. And then most teams will wait. We'll wait until about the first or second week of April to start meeting again for about a week or two to really finalize their board. So a lot has changed in terms of data with the Combine, pro days, meetings, 30 visits, all that stuff between kind of early to mid-February and mid-April. But hopefully not too many grades have changed, right? That means your scouts did a great job early on. You're not being too impacted by certain 40 times they're testing, and maybe only the character background stuff can really move some things. So I think for NFL teams, a perfect process is you leave the season with questions to ask for the All-Star game. You go before the Combine, having a good sense of who these guys are as players. Testing changes some things. Character rules guys out or rules guys in. And then hope by the second week, third week of April, teams are done. They're talking about strategy, trades in the draft, undrafted free agent plans, et cetera, too. So the next time teams will meet will be probably a week or two after, maybe the week after the Colorado Pro Day, April 4th. They'll meet that following week, the next week or two for most NFL teams. And then teams will say by April 15th, 16th, hey, scouts, you're done for the year. Look at next year's guys if you want to. We'll call you if you need something. And that'll be the head coach, GM, and owner having meetings the week leading up to the NFL draft as they plan for draft weekend.
You have been on the road and also do a lot. When can we lock you in? I know I'll put you on the spot. Can we lock you in up until the week of the draft?
Absolutely. We'd love to talk to you guys again, too. And I'm mostly done traveling until the Colorado Pro Day. Then after that, I'm around. So let's talk ball again, guys, here a couple times before the draft.
I'll be in touch, buddy. Thank you, Eric. Eric Galko, the Shriners Children's East-West Shrine Bowl, with us on 365 Sports, and just an unbelievable amount of information on players at many different places around the country. When we come back, we're going to look at a couple of notes. There's a comparison between Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders on throws of 20 yards or more. A couple of other college football notes. We are expecting Texas Tech men's basketball coach Grant McCasland sometime in this hour, and much more. 365 Sports. Got an email today from the Baylor Club. It's What's Up Wednesday. They have, coming up, the Golden Egg Hunt, starting on April 2nd. Each day, their team's going to hide a golden egg somewhere inside of the Baylor Club, and if you're lucky enough to find it, you'll be rewarded with various daily prizes. Simply bring the golden egg to the staff member somewhere close to wherever you are, and they will help you get what you will win. So right now, the Easter Egg Hunt, April the 19th from 2 until 4. Easter Go-To, that, of course, is going to be an amazing menu. That's on the 19th of April as well. Early Easter dinner celebration on that day from 5 until 8. So they have a great menu. They always have something going on at the Baylor Club inside McCasland Stadium, and memberships are available. Tell them that you watched 365 Sports and there are discounts for you, whether it's the initiation fee 1 month or maybe even dues, but we'll be there for you if you tell them you're a part of 365 Sports like they are. General Manager Mike Mosel, the Baylor Club inside McCasland Stadium.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm, welcome home.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Don Humidor, you're home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. Don Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Ready to take your business to the next level? Carrion Solutions has got you covered. We deliver world-class IT consulting, including Quest On Demand and Migration Manager, M365 and Exchange migrations, Active Directory assessments, security hardening, and Windows Server upgrades. Our experts specialize in consulting, monitoring, support, and managed IT services. We promise vision, professionalism, and unbeatable value. Satisfaction guaranteed. If you're not happy, we make it right. Remember the name Carrion Solutions. For more info, email sales@carrionsolutions.com or visit carrionsolutions.com. That's CARRION solutions.com. Carrion Solutions IT success guaranteed.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend's Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
Here's some college football notes. By the way, John Cooper from Hourland's Guy was going to be with us today in about 4:40. Moved that back to tomorrow's segment. So wanted to give you that update. Dane Brugler, one of the best when it comes to what he does with the NFL draft, the mock draft, and much more. Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders on throws of 20 yards or more in 2024. Look at, I basically could have just put a mirror against these two numbers. 34-75, both of them. 1,148 yards, 1,184 yards. The last two numbers are flipped. 14 touchdowns, no interceptions for Cam Ward. 14 touchdowns, 1 pick for Shedeur Sanders. Right down the pipe. All but identical, the two.
And that's the reason that they're 1 and 2 in the quarterbacks, and there's a drop between them and the rest of them. It's not a great year for quarterbacks in the draft, but these two can help somebody and help somebody, I think, pretty quickly. Cam Ward to the Titans, I think, he had his pro day this week. He's going to have his visit. He had dinner with the Titans before. I'm sure other teams are talking, but the Titans aren't moving off that pick. He's going to be the guy there, I would say. And so now the interesting thing comes is the Browns, who a guy in Cleveland set off a ridiculous firestorm of Twitter bullcrap today about the Browns trading for Dak Prescott, which is financially impossible for both teams.
The Cowboys would be hit with $95 million, I think, on the cap.
Yeah, not to mention that the Browns still have to carry Deshaun Watson for a whole another year before they let him go, and then they just gave Myles Garrett all this money. It's just not how the cap works. But the Browns. I don't know if the Browns are at a point where they're ready to draft their next quarterback. And maybe it's Shedeur, or maybe that all this stuff that floats out there is just to get the Giants, who draft right below them, and have Russell Wilson on a 1-year deal, Jameis Winston on a 2-year deal, and Tommy Cutlets in their room. And I don't think that that's sending a lot of confidence through the 5 boroughs in New York City. So does Shedeur Sanders wind up there? I don't think he gets past the 3rd pick one way or the other.
The thing that sucks if you're a Cleveland fan is you could believe that because they would do that type of thing. They'd somehow find a way to go get Dak Prescott, and add him to their cap. Yeah, I mean, that seems like it came out of nowhere. So,
because it was a lot.
Yeah, it was just something that was out there. It is weird too, like how, especially like something that seems, but like gets picked up by like. I don't know. It's weird, kind of how groups almost work to to spread the misinformation. Like your buddies or your allies like pick up that rumor as ridiculous it is, but then like go spread it even further. And the next thing you know, it's like there's a bunch of people talking about it and obviously having to debunk it or do whatever. But I guess that took off, even though it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And I think. Honestly, there's a big gap between Shedeur and Cam Ward. I mean, the way that it's kind of portrayed, it seems like Cam Ward's pretty much the clear-cut, like, undoubted number 1 guy here. And then Shedeur's, next up on that. But, then there's a bit of a drop-off and get to your Quinn Ewers and guys like that, who I'm still fascinated by. I think he could be a really good NFL quarterback. I mean, he maybe not, but the dude can make all the throws.
I mean, he's got all the angles, all the throws. He's got the velocity. He's like a lot of quarterbacks. He's a little loose with it at times.
Yeah, but
because he's so confident in what he can do.
That's the criticism for all the other quarterbacks is one thing or another. So to me, there's 2 premier prospects, but there's one guy that clearly seems to have separated himself as like the guy, and that is Cam Ward. And it's interesting to go back and the video that was going viral several months back of Cam Ward and Shedeur barking at each other at that, like, I guess, practice that they set up to work out. And, they're bitching at each other. And I guess Shedeur was on him about being late, and then Cam's on him about not being as focused and all of that. But what a ride for those two friends, because here they are, man, and they are the cream of the crop when it comes to the quarterback class in this draft. So from that little viral moment to they're going to be right there next to each other in the green room and then walking that stage shortly after one another. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I want to speak on Quinn Ewers for a second.
Okay.
I don't think we've ever seen Quinn Ewers play – like, he's tough because he's played through a lot of injuries, and I don't think we've ever seen him play completely healthy, which is the big question I have about him is can he stay healthy? Because I think he's an excellent leader. You said, Craig, he can make all the throws. I mean, he can throw the ball through a brick wall if he wants to. So I think that it'll be interesting to see where he winds up in what kind of situation. And if he can get over these injuries, like he's never had a big one, but he's had a ton of like little ones. And then those things last because you don't stop getting hit. Like, you can heal, but, like, you get hit again, your ribs hurt, your elbow hurts, whatever it is. So I'm curious to see if he can take it to that next gear, which we never completely saw at Texas. And I think due in large part to the fact that he's always banged up.
Every single NFL team will know exactly what he had, the labrum or whatever it might have been, the oblique, all the stuff, everything. Like, they know what happened to him in his 3rd grade. He may have broken a toe. And I would think that based on how he gutted it out, that is something where the injuries are a negative because you get injured a lot, but also because of how he played through it will be something that really intrigues a lot of NFL teams. He had his pro day yesterday. Apparently it went really, really well. The biggest controversy, did you hear about this? The biggest controversy at his pro day yesterday was that the local media didn't like the fact that he didn't give them any time afterwards, and some were kind of bothered by it. Because he was going to go meet with the team. And I'm sure he'll meet with a lot of teams. And that then got to be like a distraction about the fact that he had what looked like a nice pro day yesterday in Austin.
Yeah, he did have a viral moment where he had a bit of a wobbler that people were goofing on him for that. But he said NFL pro day with like every team watching him. So I think he's got the bigger laugh, honestly, outside of the throw that I saw a bunch of people commenting on. But yeah, I think he's an intriguing guy. I mean, I'm sure in other parts of the country they're talking about Jackson Dart the same way, or Dylan Gabriel or whatever. But yeah, I mean, the quarterback class is very clearly there's 2 crown jewels, and then there's a bunch of other guys who are just big question marks. Even though Shedeur and Cam still have their own question marks that they're going to have to answer, but I just think there's far fewer for those guys than there are for everybody else. But that rest of the quarterback room does read like a college all-star team. I mean, Dylan Gabriel and Quinn Ewers and Jackson Dart and so on and so forth. Jalen Milroe, who we have heard a little bit about here and there. That's a good crop of college quarterbacks, but there are big question marks about how much of those talents translate to the NFL.
All right. Paul Catalina is very high on Devin Dampier at Utah. Quarterback, this is from, I saw this from our Josh Furlong, who's joined us a few times on Utah. Quickly developed his voice as a leader at Utah. His teammates already respect him a ton, hence why he was named to the Leadership Council in just a few months on campus. Several players have also mentioned him as a great leader already. And so that's good news. Utah's been kind of in that hit and miss at quarterback with Cam Rising in and out for a long time, stretches in and out. But this does appear to be really good news for Utah moving forward.
Look, this guy's going to torch some people this year. I'm telling you, he's really good. And he fits, I've said from the very beginning, once Kyle Whittingham decided he wasn't going to retire yet, like, this is a great guy to have your potential last hurrah with, because he can do some things, and the Big 12 is going to be like this. We know it, that there's a team that was wildly disappointing that's going to be really good, and I think it's going to be Utah. I think it's going to be them.
I think it'd be far more concerning if you didn't hear these types of things during spring football when he's come over through the transfer portal, but it's still good to see them nonetheless. I mean, I think this is what you'd expect to see from a guy being brought in to do exactly what that's describing, but I do think he's a solid player. I'm not nearly as high on him as Paul is. I think the touchdown to interception ratio last year was not great. He can move around and make some things happen, though. And so from that standpoint, he's going to be an exciting player with some exciting moments. But is he all around, like top to bottom, the level of Cam Rising at his best when he was healthy? I don't know how close he comes to that, but I do know that just the lack of the drama will be a beneficial thing for Kyle Whittingham and his team. But, yeah, I mean, he's definitely got to shape up the passing game a little bit. But he does have a lot of talent, and he's a guy who ran around a lot last year, had over 1,000 yards. So he gives you that dual threat aspect when the pass game is or isn't working. He can take off and run with it. So, yeah, he's going to bring some dynamic ability and a little bit of electricity to that Utah offense, and that program could certainly use it after last year.
All right, there's also this one, and we have seen guys who were, like Vern Lundquist, forever did CBS Sports, did college football, and a part of the chance of the revolving door when eventually it's time to move on. Gary Danielson, smooth voice, great analyst, played the game, announced his retirement as CBS Sports lead college football analyst. Charles Davis will replace him, former Tennessee football player. Danielson, to me, this is Pat Smith Radio that had that earlier today. If Gary Danielson was doing a game, it was a big game because he's the lead analyst. And CBS Sports, for the longest time, of course, had the SEC, now a part of the Big Ten. But Gary Danielson will be moving forward, which is his 20th year doing color analyst work for CBS Sports.
Yeah, he and Brad Nessler were really good together. He and Vern Lundquist were good together. Of course, I think anybody who's kind of like – those guys make everybody next to them good, but Gary Danielson was a nice guy to pair with both of them. I sometimes felt he wasn't critical enough of the officiating, if I had to give him a knock, but it's a big game. He's always, and the thing is, he's enjoying it. I think the thing that makes it good, like Gary Danielson is a guy you can tell is enjoying the game when it's going on. Like it doesn't sound like he's working. Sometimes you can hear that in God's voice. It sounds like they're working. Never sounded like he was working.
No, he enjoyed what he did. He absolutely enjoyed what he did. Gunnar Stockton, he's the one that came in. Carson Beck, remember, got hurt, had a pretty good run. Georgia eventually just did not have enough in the tank. It wasn't because they weren't good. They were. But he was asked about Carson Beck, and did he tell him when he was on his way to Miami, did he let him know that he was transferring? He goes, no, he was busy. Just kind of a funny little comment from Gunnar Stockton about Carson Beck, who's now at the University of Miami. We are now joined by Texas Tech men's basketball coach and a great friend of the show, Grant McCasland, is Tech in the Sweet 16, along with 3 others in the Big 12, and Coach Craig Smoak, Paul Catalina, David Smoak. Thank you so much. We're excited for you, thrilled for you. What is it like right now surrounding the Tech basketball program in Lubbock?
Smoke, what's up, buddy?
How you doing?
It's exciting. I mean, what's not to like about an opportunity to compete in the Sweet 16? We're actually on the ground in San Francisco, headed to our practice at the arena, and just honestly, the whole approach has been like, how can we keep building on, I think, a progression that our teams continue to show that we can get better. And there's a lot of excitement in Lubbock and obviously around all of Texas Tech. It's so exciting. We got manhole covers blowing off the ground. No, man, I just tell you, there's a lot of things to be excited about right now, and this is obviously one of them.
Your team chemistry is really good this year. Obviously, it kind of has to be to get to where you were. That is more difficult to build in this era. This is not 3 years of guys doing all these things together. Now, you certainly have some, but to build a team this fast, what a credit is it to the players that came and bought in so quickly to being together, even though they hadn't played together all that much, quite a few of them?
Oh, no question. I mean, it's all credit to them, and it's intentional in a lot of ways. I mean, we had a couple guys that we really wanted as a staff, and we brought them on campus, and 2 of our seniors came in there and said, we don't want them on our team. And
wow.
I think that's the key to all of this is like, how can you get your returners to be invested in the process? And people thought I was kind of crazy, but I was really leaning on those guys, and I was running names by them. And I mean, we do it in everything. We do it in scouting reports before we even start talking about another team. We're like, all right, who knows anybody on the other team, and tell us what you know. And I just think that's the investment that you want, is your best players and your returners to be in conversation about what you want your team to look like. That way, I'm not calling you and telling you you're going to play the point. I'm calling somebody else and telling them they're going to play the point, because I think that's a disaster. And that's what people have done, I think, in this day and time of putting teams together quickly. You better be honest on the front end and be as clear as you can to try to set the expectation that gets met in a way that you exceed it. And I think your players in your program have to be involved in it at the highest level.
Grant, what is not the attrition? You guys have had that. You've had injuries, Anderson, McMillan, Williams, et cetera, that you're trying to see if they're healthy. What is it like, the grind? Does the adrenaline overcome what is the bumps and bruises and maybe being worn down?
No, honestly, this is where I thought we made a step in the right direction this year as opposed to last year. I think, we lost Christian Anderson and Elijah Hawkins at the beginning of the year, and then Chance, and you mentioned it, and Darian Williams at the end, and it was JT Toppin in the middle. So literally, if you're evaluating our starting 5, there's only been one player on our team that's played in every game, only one. That's Kerwin Walton. He's self-proclaimed a weapon of mass destruction. No, that's actually a joke within our staff that his family has said about him, and it's got some truth to it. I mean, it's unbelievable what he's endured over the course of the season. But honestly, we do love the fact that I think what our team has done as a group is everybody's practiced hard, and we've got more depth. And one guy that I think stepped into a role is like Christian Anderson. And I think that's the key to this, is how do you have guys that are ready so when their number's called, and Kevin Overton has done that consistently, and he's a sophomore. And so you're talking about freshmen and sophomores that just keep getting better.
Grant McCasland, Texas Tech men's basketball coach with us, 365 Sports. Paul?
You guys have played every game has been a close game. And, of course, that happens in the Big 12. Your worst loss is 9 points. How does it prepare you for tournament play that you guys maybe, as opposed to maybe some other teams in the tournament, know how to play close and not lose your mojo, lose that momentum, and lose the edge?
Well, I think there's a grit that goes with this that our league prepares you for. And it is tournament play, but it's like, how do you handle when things don't go your way? That's what winning is. I mean, that to me is everything, because you're going to go through scenarios where you don't get what you want. It doesn't happen for you like you hoped. And then how do you handle that? Whether it's shots going in, whether it's made baskets, whether there's just so many different scenarios that give you that you put yourself in our league, that when you get in these games where it's one possession, that all that is relevant to fighting through adversity and figuring out a way to win a game. And that's what I love about road games too. I don't know what our number was, but it was like 8-2 on the road in the Big 12, and with a win at Houston, at Kansas. And to me, that's what I love about our team, and that's what I love about preparation for this tournament, is I do think we're tested in a way that we can respond to anything, and our guys believe that.
I know you got practice and shoot around, and we will appreciate your time. Just a couple more questions. You said grit. I wrote down 2 words about your basketball team, and about you, Grant: resiliency and grit. Doesn't the team take on the personality of their coach?
Yes. But more importantly, the personality, I think, of the staff. Or do I need to walk out? I think that's the key to this, is like your staff has to be so connected. And that's where I think there's continuity involved. Last year we had some continuity with our staff and going into this year's team. And I thought that was huge. I mean, you can't underestimate that and what benefit that is for a program and for a team, is to have everybody on the same page, and you're not having to coach the coaches. You're all constantly coaching your team, and that's where I think the personality of your staff can help your players be their best.
And I know you got to go. That's what was so great about where you were at Baylor with Scott and the staff that was together for a long, long time, and now spread out as head coaches everywhere. Last question. You know Ross Hodge. I know Ross Hodge. I covered him when he was at Paris Junior College. He's going to be, in fact, I think it's official, about West Virginia. What can you tell Mountaineer fans about their new head coach?
I can tell you this. I love him, but I'm not happy about it. I mean, I told Ren, obviously, I can't think of a better guy for the job, but honestly, he just made my life horrible because he's that good. Yeah. And I say that with the utmost respect, and I hope you guys understand how I'm saying it. But honestly, he and I got to do this together. We were both young, and here's how I'll say it, okay? He has a better win percentage, and we've been at the same place. He has done it quicker and better than what I did at both places we both coached at together. And he's one of my dear friends, but what I love most about him, he's an awesome husband, father, and the way he loves people is real. And all I can tell you, there's no fluff. It's real. And he's going to win at West Virginia. There is no question about it.
So now you know how Scott feels when he has to go all over the Big 12 and play all you guys now, which I knew you knew anyway. And also, look, another one of your great friends, Ben McCollum, was on our show last week talking about his friendship with you. He is on his way to Iowa. And, Grant, I can't think of a better fit of coach and program than he in Iowa.
Yeah, no, he's gonna crush it. Sorry, that's the Arkansas bus honking at us. No, that's the thing that I'll tell you, to me, makes all this special is unfortunately we have to play each other, but what a awesome. No, I got it. Where we're going. But what's awesome to me is when you get to see somebody live their dream. And Ben always wanted to be the head coach at Iowa. And you never know if you get the opportunity to do that. And I can tell you this, between he and Ross, like neither one of those guys are guys that I mean, if I were hiring and I had the Lakers those are two guys I'd want to hire. I'm not saying that. I just mean they're honestly, I believe they're that special at this. And, but what I love most about this is those guys are people that are going to build men that I would want being around my kids. I mean, if they said, hey, your son has to pay $100,000 to come play on our team, I'd do it. I just love both those guys, and that's who I'd want coaching my sons, and that's the best thing I can say about both of them.
Grant, thanks for your time, man. Good luck. Keep going. Good luck in the Sweet 16 to you and the three others in the Big 12. We do appreciate your time. We're thrilled for you. Have a great rest of the day and rest of the weekend.
Y'all are the best. Wreck 'em.
Thank you. Grant McCasland, head coach at Texas Tech. His thoughts about Ross Hodge, his thoughts about Ben McCollum, and his thoughts about Texas Tech. Resiliency and grit. If you look at their stats online, there's like 8 guys who have played 30-plus games. You go, okay, well, that's how many they've played 30-plus games. But they've had to rotate and churn that starting lineup with all of the different – Christian Anderson, mentioned McMillan, Williams, among others, Toppin. And remember, they won in Houston when he was ejected because of the knee and the groin. And, man, they do play like him. And I'm so thrilled that he said what he said about Ross, because I'd mentioned they're kind of like mirror images. And he goes, no, he's actually got a better winning percentage from where he started, where I started, and good for him. And good luck to Texas Tech.
Just to give you an idea on their losses, 1 point to St. Joe's in November. 78-77. 5 points against A&M in December. 4 points to UCF early, on New Year's Eve. 1 point in OT to Iowa State. 9 points at Arizona is their biggest loss. 3 point loss at TCU. An 8 point loss at Houston in February, and a 6 point loss to Arizona in the tournament. Just a couple weeks ago. This is not a team very similar to Houston. You cannot run out and get a big lead on them and keep it. If you do, they play close. They know how to play close, and that's why I think that they're set up to maybe do some exciting things here in the next couple weeks, because they know how to play in games that they're going to be playing in.
Yep, and now 4 teams in the Sweet 16, and one of them, Texas Tech, as they just, again, are about to go work out, shoot around, and kind of get their legs on the ground, getting ready for Arkansas and John Calipari. When we come back, we have, North Carolina and their schedule today, and much more to get to today. John Wilner at about 5 o'clock on the Stanford opening and the decision by Andrew Luck. He covers the West Coast as well in many different ways. This is 365 Sports. So we're now into the early part of March. And how many of you, as the year ended or this year began, said, I'm going to get myself in shape. I'm going to get fit. I'm going to lose some inches. I'm going to lose some pounds. And now here we are, the first week in March. And did you do that? Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive in Waco. Personal trainers to help you reach your goals. And they know how to do that. Randall Corley, Christy London, Robin Nelson, Nathan Roach, and Lori Hull are there to help you. To get rid of that little extra that you have around your waist, or to just get fit. Cardio, strength, fitness. Why not now? Don't wait until, I'm going to get ready for the summer. Do that now so you can relax and enjoy the summer if you go to the beach, swimming pool, or just stay in shape or get in shape. Also, Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness has a bunch of tennis courts, including an 1,100-seat stadium court. They are resurfacing some of the tennis courts. Some of them are done. Some of them are being resurfaced now. And it is spectacular. Britt Coleman, Dixon, John, Holt, Clay, and Kenna all can help you out. And then Rachel Carter, director of pickleball, because pickleball is exploding, and they are ready for you with pickleball private lessons from Peter, Dixon, and also Jody. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness, tennis, fitness, pickleball, and more. Do it by yourself, do it with personal trainers, but do it. Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
Allen Samuels House of Travel is a full-service travel agency with highly experienced travel consultants plus support staff with over a combined 150 years in the travel business. They are ready to take care of any travel situation for you, your family, and your business, and with the kind of knowledge to complete a seamless itinerary trip start to finish. They will search for the best deal to accommodate your budget from air to cars, ship to shore, hotel, and even meeting space. Name a destination and they've been there. They know the places to go, and international and missionary travel is one of their unique specialties. Allen Samuels House of Travel, celebrating 50 years in business. Call Connie, Sherry, Linda, or Bambi at 254-776-2560 or find them on Facebook or at houseoftravelwaco.com. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Want to send a message to the show? Jump in the Rudy's Country Store and Barbecue chat room.
We are going through the ACC. Schools and their schedule, not really so much an analysis of X's and O's and all of that. We've mentioned a little bit of that, but Miami yesterday and the Tar Heels and Bill Belichick. I had to kind of rethink that. The head coach at North Carolina, Mike Lombardi, the general manager, and here's their schedule. Craig?
Yeah, I mean, starting off with North Carolina, obviously the big news this offseason was the hire of Bill Belichick and just the mystery that comes with what it looks like when an old NFL head coach who seemingly was on his way out of the game suddenly finds himself placed right in the thick of things and the Wild West of modern-day college football. So interesting experiment upcoming for North Carolina. One, though, that is a big risk, I guess, in some ways, although it's not like North Carolina football is like going to bend or break on the Belichick hire, but it's very interesting, and there's a lot to it because of the timing of it all and just where North Carolina as a school is in particular and sort of the no man's land when it comes to the future of the ACC and where they fit into the whole thing. So they kind of need this to be a good hire. It's not going to make or break their chances to be in some Super League one day, but it could certainly help their chances immensely if this goes well for them. So point being, they are investing a lot into this and hoping that Belichick can be more than a big name for them. I mean, are y'all going to watch more North Carolina football based on Bill Belichick? I mean, honestly, are you going to watch more based on Bill Belichick?
Only if they're good.
Right, yeah.
I mean, if they're what they've been. I watched a lot when Drake May was playing because they were really fun to watch, but I don't like my coming and going of watching teams, and I watch a lot of the ACC mostly as FSU and who's doing well, like what's vital to the race, more or less. So, yeah, I mean, if they're good, I'll watch them. If not, then, I'll watch them as much as I have before.
I refused to watch them. I was worn out by the James Madison game last year. Wasn't that
They were, that was
190 points scored or whatever. No, I've always liked North Carolina. I was more of a Duke basketball guy, so I don't know if I can say that. But I'll watch. I'll see where they are. But we're going to find out pretty quickly. We'll watch them obviously that opening game.
Yeah, so they finished 6-7 last year, lost in the Fenway Bowl to UConn, 27-14. That's how things wrapped up for the Mac Brown era. So Belichick's the big storyline here, and here is what they're looking at as far as their schedule heading into the next season. And there is some Big 12 flavor on this schedule in the non-conference. On Monday, September the 1st is when you'll see North Carolina open the season. So a Monday game. They also have a couple of Friday games. They don't play on Sunday, but they do have 3 games on non-Saturdays, including that opener, which will be at home against TCU. On Monday, September the 1st, the following week, we'll have only 5 days to get ready, a very short turnaround, but you're playing Charlotte. Unique in that it's a road game, but you are playing Charlotte right after TCU, so I don't think you'll feel the need to have all of your days as you typically would in a normal week to get ready for Charlotte, with all due respect. The following week after that, you've got Richmond on Saturday, September the 13th, and then you wrap non-con play and you head into your first bye week. So there's a pretty traditional setup of your non-conference and then go into a bye week and then come back and start your conference. That's how they have it, which is almost unique in that a lot of teams are just stilted different ways that we've covered so far. But there's 4 non-cons and a bye week, and then we'll get into what the ACC schedule looks like. But road trip to Orlando to take on UCF, and obviously that opener at home against TCU, the 2 big highlights of that 4-game non-con schedule.
Yeah, and these are good. I mean, like TCU up. I mean, that game I'll watch. I mean, mostly it's going to be the only one on, but I'll definitely watch it. Very curious about both those teams. This is not a super tough after TCU, I think, on the surface non-con schedule, so that might allow them to hit the ground running. And much like Bill Belichick and the Patriots, with North Carolina, it's hard for me to even say because I know very little about what's going on there. Like
they have 50-something new players.
Yes, but
yeah, so that's why you want.
But like, what do we know about how they fit? Like, what do they do? Like, he didn't even want to tell people who the assistant coaches were. I think if he could just put them behind a wall and like muddle their voices like they're on a 60 Minutes interview about the guy who kidnapped them, like that's the only thing that I can envision. Like he would be more perfect for him because he's very secretive. So I mean, yeah, they should be 3-1 out of this more than like that. And again, I don't know much about what UCF's going to look like either because they have turnover as well. But this is a nice way for them to get started.
Yeah, I mean, they should at worst be 2-2. 3-1's probably most likely. 4-0's entirely possible. I would take TCU right now, but that's just because I know more about them. That game, though, is in Chapel Hill, and it's the first game of the season, so who the hell knows, really. But that will be a primetime game there on September the 1st to open things up for the Belichick era. So they will get the break after the road trip to UCF. You do have a couple of road trips to Charlotte, to Orlando, which could be worse. Nice little weekend jaunt if you're some Tar Heels fans to those places. But when you come back on Saturday, October the 4th, it will be ACC play, and it gets started with the Clemson Tigers at home. So I wonder if the ACC schedule makers are like, Belichick, Clemson, yeah, let's do that right out of the gate. Or if it was just the way the computer programs spit it out. But just kind of funny that that's who you draw as your very first ACC opponent is the Clemson Tigers. And then what's really unique about this is they have a bye.
Yeah.
So they go 4 games non-conference, bye, Clemson, bye.
They have the Miami and them have the same skeleton of schedule.
Yeah. So just very weird. So you'll have basically the entire first half of the month of October will be dedicated to the build-up and then the fallout from your ACC opener against Clemson. So, yeah, that's just really weird. So, yeah, you get Clemson, and then it's your second bye week, and then you've got your remaining 7 games in conference play. You'll go to Cal, so Chapel Hill to Berkeley. That's a long road trip. It's also a Friday night game, so unique there. Then it is Virginia at home on Saturday, October the 25th. Then another Friday game and also on the road. You're going to Syracuse. So in the span of 3 weeks, you have trips to California and Syracuse, and both of those games on Friday nights. Then on Saturday, November the 8th, it'll be the Stanford Cardinal at home as Stanford makes the cross-country trip themselves. Then a little Carolina action to close out the rest of the schedule. So after all this bouncing around and weird bye weeks and Friday games and Monday game and all that jazz, they just simply close out the rest of the season, 3 games in the state of North Carolina. It's all Tobacco Road. Saturday, November the 15th at Wake Forest. Then it is Saturday, November the 22nd, taking on the Duke Blue Devils. And then Saturday, November the 29th, going to NC State. So 6 home games, 6 road games, a Monday game, 2 Friday games, all Tobacco Road to close the final 3 weeks of the schedule. Trips cross-country to Cal, down south to Orlando for UCF. It's an interesting schedule and one that's certainly not set up to just have immediate success if you're Bill Belichick. Certainly doesn't guarantee immediate success. I'll get to who they don't play, and they don't play some pretty notable teams, a lot of the contenders in the ACC on paper, but still, just the weird structure of this makes it seem a bit more difficult than it might actually be.
No, a 12-game schedule, right?
Yeah.
11 games in Eastern Coast time.
Yeah.
11. The game, what did you say, at Cal? That's it. Every game they play is East Coast.
Yeah, and
I'm like basically North Carolina, Syracuse, of course, New York, but that's something that popped out to me.
Now, I mean, the toughest games on their schedule, Clemson, Duke, and TCU, and Syracuse, because I think Syracuse will be good again under Fran Brown. And then you've got a lot of wild cards here. For Bill Belichick, this is a great schedule to hit the ground running and create some momentum. I mean, they're pretty even with most of the teams on it. And if you're even starting out, at least on paper, with a coaching mind like his, maybe that'll allow you, to get a bit of a jump on people. I don't think their quarterback situation's all that great.
They rolling with the freshman. Is that what the plan is as of right now?
Right now it looks like that. And then, Amarian Hampton was kind of the engine that made their offense go. He's going to be potentially a first-round pick. Like, they've got a lot of guys gone. Kyman Rucker, their really good defensive end who spent a lot of time injured, he's gone. Byron Nesbitt, their good tight end, he's gone. They've had to replace a lot of guys. Like you said, 50 new players. I
saw a list that had West Virginia was like 59 with Rich Rod. Remember when Dion, shock
80,
and all?
Yeah. So,
and so I think that the 50 range was North Carolina.
I think you have to just, you have to lower expectations for year one even further than most years, because now it's totally, you got to build some chemistry. Year two could be different, especially when people see Belichick's really invested in this. I think the other thing that he's going to have to deal with is, because he's not very candid about things, is that he's going to have to show that I'm in this to build something and not this is not just for me not to be bored.
Yeah, fix.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a schedule I think is manageable to make a bowl game and to have some success early on. I think the win totals, Vegas was right about where you'd expect it. It's at 7.5. Well, if you're going on the schedule, say okay, who's the most likely games you'd say that if you had to put good money on it, they're going to lose? You'd say probably Clemson, right? You'd say beyond that, probably go with Syracuse, probably go with Duke, and then maybe TCU. So that's 4 games. That'd be 8-4. Well, where does Vegas have them? 7.5 wins. So it's right there where it makes it tough, and that's the whole point of the exercise, right? Is to gamble on what you think is going to happen. And so that's right where I could see them teetering on that line of 7-5, 8-4. And then depends on if there's a bunch of other teams that end up being way better than we expect, then maybe that's not as likely and they're just scratching to make a bowl game. But I do look at that and probably exactly what Vegas did. You're all right, there's 4 games that I'd probably go ahead and say losses. But beyond that, all right, that leaves you at 8-4 and make of that whatever you will. It's a unique schedule. Just the timing of the bye weeks, staying mostly on the East Coast. I mean, you're in the ACC. That was what you were supposed to be doing all along. If not for the weird realignment, that would be just commonplace. But you do have to go out to the West Coast, so that's your big trip there. And I think, playing a couple teams, and we have no idea about UCF and the non-con could be interesting, but they do not play Georgia Tech. They do not play SMU. They do not play Florida State. They do not play Miami. They don't play Notre Dame. They don't play Louisville. They don't play NC State or Boston College. So Boston College, respectfully,
they
whatever.
do play NC State.
At the end.
Oh,
At the end.
okay,
Yes,
sorry. I take NC State off that.
Yeah.
So Notre Dame, Louisville, Miami, SMU, Georgia Tech, and then whatever Florida State thinks they're going to be. That's a pretty good crop of schools that you're missing out on. Although you do play, Clemson, Syracuse, et cetera. But I just reeled off probably like 5 of the top 7 contenders for the ACC next year that they're not going to be playing. So that maybe works in their favor a little bit.
Yeah, I always loved their colors, the uniforms. Duke had the blue, but the North Carolinas were so cool. It's interesting. The change, you lose a guy in Mac Brown, who's a legend, and you bring in an NFL legend, and Bill Belichick. And what a great landing spot it's been for him. I have no idea what to expect from him.
I guess it has been. We don't really, all we know is that he went there and something about his girlfriend's involved, and that's all we know about North Carolina football, basically. They had a reality show, and then they didn't, and it's all sort of, I don't know.
Look, North Carolina is literally more secretive than the Pentagon right now. So,
yeah.
Not
hard to do.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's really tough to see what they're gonna be. But it just based on the schedule, they've got an opportunity to be something, get some wins and maybe create some momentum. And the wins are all that matter in year one to build the momentum. It doesn't. Because they've been kind of stuck a little bit, they just need to move forward and show that they're building something. It's not Bill Belichick does not have the expectation okay, we want you to do your Patriots magic here. It took him time to do that too.
Yeah, I will say though, Paul, at his age, he doesn't really have a lot of time to stretch his legs and just get comfy.
That's why I think a lot of people think that this is a gamut to get Steve the job. Eventually, his son, who's on staff. But
God, if that was in my head as a North Carolina fan, I'd be so pissed if that was what I thought was happening right now.
And what is his overall long-term goal here? Because he's got a 3-year contract.
Does he even have one?
Which is shorter than any other coach would ask for in the similar situation. Because when you sign, when Dave Aranda signed here, it was a 5-year deal. Matt Rule's contract in Nebraska was a 5-year deal. Mike Norvell just signed a 7-year deal last year. The Mario Cristobal is a 7 or 8 year deal that he signed with Miami because he even asked for more time, knowing that they had been so behind the 8 ball. Hey, I'm going to need more money or more years on the back end.
So the standard's 5+ years, right?
Yeah, so the standard's 5+ years. So 3 years, that would be okay, well, why are you undercutting the standard thing? You're only costing yourself money at that point.
Well, maybe it's how you got the deal done. Was hey, we're not going to do 5 years. Yeah. That's too much. You're 72 years old. And he's okay, meet in the middle. We'll do 3 years. Because at that point, you're going to know whether he's got the magic or not, I would think. They might not have won the conference, but you're going to know, a couple years in, does he have the ability to coach college football in his early 70s, or is this just the disaster that a lot of people thought it was going to be? That's what's fascinating about it, is it could be an absolute disaster, so people can't look away. It could also be great. There's a lot of people that have differing opinions on how great he actually is as a head coach without certain talents around him, but this will be a great litmus test and just a very interesting experiment. I applaud North Carolina for going pretty all in with trying to make the splash. You're talking about West Virginia not making a big splash in basketball and how that rubs some people the wrong way. But, all that matters is winning. Well, if you care about the splash, then that's what North Carolina certainly accomplished this offseason, as well as anybody. They made the splash higher, but what does it turn into? He's going to have to get results pretty quickly because of that contract. And again, I think the writing will be on the wall pretty quickly.
Very intrigued by how it works. One thing, he can coach at any level, but you're right. He won 6 or whatever it was with Brady, and then Brady goes to Tampa and wins one. He's not going to be, I don't know what they're going to end up doing. Are they going to play like they did with the Patriots? Because those Patriot teams morphed. That's what I like about his teams. Yes, they had Brady, But those teams early won with nasty defense, opportunistic defense, special teams, and a pretty good offense that was more of a run team. Then they became, with Randy Moss and company, a team that would throw the ball all over the place. They started struggling a little bit more in Super Bowls when they stopped playing great defense, which, ding, 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 right? He's won in different ways with different type of styles. I think he'll tighten them up, and they'll win a game or two just because of fundamentals like Parcells as an NFL coach, who he obviously coached with for a long time too.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that like the recruiting rankings are the the end all be all, or the of all the I Ching of all the knowledge, but he's not recruiting like they're doing their own thing when it comes to recruiting and talent evaluation, which he and Mike Lombardi, like, great, like, knock yourself out. But, they've got a couple of studs. But, like, if he wants to win how North Carolina wants him to win, like, they are going to have to listen to, the people who do know evaluating high school talent better than those guys do, because for all their experience evaluating, guys for the NFL, Mike Lombardi, the first time he went to a high school this year was the first time he went to a high school during his career at all. Like it's a different way that you have to look at things. You have to there's a lot more rolling the dice when it comes to high school recruiting, even when it comes to the draft. So it's a different thing. And so that's why I wonder, it's just kind of an odd thing to see what they're trying to do. And Bill Belichick's got the brain to do it, but stuff is wild in college football. If it doesn't work right away, he's only got 2 other years to fix it. I don't know.
What did we say about Deion? We weren't sure about him, right? Has he been better there than we thought?
Yeah, Deion also came over from Jackson State.
No, I know, but I'm just like, it was different though. I'm talking about it was a different type. What NFL coaches have gone to college? And Pete Carroll
was very successful, yeah.
Absolutely. In fact, that's what really ended up making his career. Won the Super Bowl with Seattle, but the USC time, he was fantastic. Rule's an NFL guy, but he's been mainly in college and flailed out in Carolina. I'm trying to think of NFL coaches who became college coaches.
Bill Walsh had his run at Syracuse, and I'm pretty sure that's what Stanford.
Yeah.
We're about to talk about them, for God's sakes. But, yeah, I mean, it just seems odd to me, and
no, it's different. It's unique.
It just seems odd.
Is anything odd anymore?
Yeah, I mean, this is. I'll tell you, yeah. I mean, it's just different. And go ahead. I mean, nobody has the code cracked yet. Everybody's benefited and suffered in the new world in some way. Even Georgia, right? Georgia, they had it, Kirby Smart had gamed the old system for 2 years. Had finally gamed it. Had finally turned the corner and gotten better than Alabama. And then what happened? The floodgates open with NIL and the transfer portal, and even though he can get more, you don't have everybody anymore. You can't just assembly line in talent when you have injuries. So he had to live how everybody else did, and am I going to make the playoff?
Oh, damn,
did.
Poor Georgia.
Yeah, but
right?
but you see, he has less consequences than most, but it comes for everybody in one way or another.
All right, we got to hit John on time, and so we'll take a break here. John Wilner from the Wilner Hotline on the Stanford opening, the Andrew Luck decision. This is 365 Sports. Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, got a new note from Ted Teague today on what's happening between now and as they wrap up the month of March. 2024 Ram 2500 Crew Cab, starting at $42,900. Need more power? Check out the 2024 Ram 3500 Tradesman, $53,729. Or go big with the Ram 3500 Bighorn featuring Cummins Turbo Diesel, now $10,000 off. Ram Truck Month. They have Ram trucks. I was on my way this morning driving down Lakeshore, and all of a sudden there was this object behind me that got closer and closer. You always hear about that in your rearview mirror. It was a Ram truck, and it was barreling down the road, and I got out of the way. I normally like to maybe race that kind of stuff, but no, it was a dude. Also, the Ram 3500 and 5500 chassis cabs ready for immediate delivery, plus 7 brand new ProMasters on the lot in stock. Vans, 2 pre-owned starting at $26,250. The best selection of trucks in the entire area in Central Texas. Allen Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco.
Automatic Chef is your local vending, office coffee, and micro market provider, delivering outstanding service to break rooms all over Central Texas for over 50 years. Automatic Chef brings the best products to your location at the best prices. With hundreds of choices in fresh food, coffee, snacks, and drinks, let Automatic Chef tailor a break room solution to your needs. Make break time great again with Automatic Chef. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchef.com.
Baylor alumni are more than 160,000 strong. When we all join hands to support our university, we don't just move the needle, we move mountains. Working together, we create life-changing opportunities for students on the field, in the classroom, in the laboratory, and in life for generations to come. So get connected, get involved. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Petty Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide, affordable, highly effective. Google search Petty Clinic Waco and reach out to the Petty Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pettycliniclowt.com.
This is 365 Sports. Enjoying the show? Hit the like button and subscribe.
We are now joined by John Wilner. There's our dude on the West Coast. The Wilner Hotline joins us. Paul Catalina, David Smoak, and Craig Smoak, 365 Sports. Thank you, sir. You look like you're like an old fisherman right now, like you're going on a pier to go find whatever you would find.
Yeah, well, I need a haircut. I had planned to get a haircut yesterday, in fact, and then Stanford fired its coach.
Yeah. How selfish of them, right?
Always happens. It's a long year for us folks who cover college football and basketball. It never ends. We're getting to the end here, and I hope to get out of my fisherman's gear and get back to normal life in, 3 or 4 weeks.
John, is this a situation where they have to go interim, or do you hire your full-time coach right now? I mean, look, given all the tumultuous nature that Stanford has been through academically, leadership-wise, and everything the last couple of years, notwithstanding, they're still Stanford. I mean, they still can do, like, if they just decided to do something, there's nothing stopping them. No one's in their way from doing whatever they want.
That is true. Stanford and BYU could rule the world if they wanted, because it's all about resources. Mm-hmm. So I don't know what they're going to do. Andrew Luck is in charge of this. There's no athletic director right now. He stepped down a month ago. They haven't even appointed an interim. Luck is in charge of football. They could hire a full-time coach in the next few weeks, not ideal time, where they could appoint an acting coach, that gets them through the season. A little bit like what Northwestern did with David Braun when Fitzgerald got fired, 2 years ago in the summer? And I think that's actually, it could be a smart move for them, because Stanford has got to figure out what do they want to do in the revenue sharing era in terms of allocation for football versus all their Olympic sports. How do they want to deal with the transfer portal? They can't survive on only taking graduate transfers from the Ivy League. So they got a lot of institutional issues that they need to figure out. And the answers will help dictate the quality of their candidate pool. So I think they might be better off waiting 9 months and evaluating the landscape before they make a move.
John, when did it start to kind of come to your attention that this Troy Taylor experiment was starting to get off to, get off road a little bit and not in line, obviously, with, your traditional head coach and his responsibilities and his behaviors?
Well, I mean, I didn't know about the investigation until the ESPN report, but there were a lot of signs that things weren't going well. In addition to the back-to-back 3-9 records, they brought Luck in at the end of November and gave him authority. He was Taylor's boss and reported directly to the university president. So he essentially had more authority than either the head coach or the athletic director. So that was a big sign that the AD was getting marginalized, and also that Troy Taylor, that his days could be numbered if they didn't get things turned around. I do not know at what point in the onboarding process Luck found out about the investigations, but clearly they were okay with Taylor being the head coach in 2025 until ESPN broke the story. And then it looked, the public embarrassment made them reverse course.
So you mentioned the possibilities of what they do, interim or whatever. We had, who was it yesterday that we had on to talk about? What about Jason Garrett?
Interesting name. The Princeton background certainly would go over well with Stanford's Board of Trustees.
Mm-hmm.
Has he I don't even know if he's coached in college. At least he hasn't in a long time. And
the closest he's been to college is the fact that he does Notre Dame games, I think, is about it.
Yeah,
right.
And he's not very good on air, I got to tell you. I'm not sure about that one. I don't think Stanford can afford to swing and miss with somebody who doesn't understand the landscape. The first person I thought of for an acting coach was Mike Bloomgren, the former Rice coach, who was the offensive coordinator and offensive line coach during Luck's senior year. And when Bloomgren left for Rice, that was one of the things that sent Stanford on a long, slow burn. But he just took a job with the Browns, so I don't know that he's available to be, an acting coach.
John, is this given the things that have happened away from the sports arena, the president situation, which was a huge deal. And then again, you mentioned they don't have an athletic director. Does it make it less attractive than it would be in any other regard? That and the fact that most people who may be attracted to the Stanford job just 2 years ago are like, do I really want to play 15 of my 16 conference opponents 2 time zones or more away?
The ACC thing is a challenge. And so is not just the travel, but the revenue issue, right? Now that the ACC, first Stanford and Cal were already getting 30% revenue shares for the next 7 years. And now they've got the brand deal where your TV viewership will help determine how much revenue you get. Stanford and Cal probably not going to be the highest rated games. So they have a lot working against them just with the ACC distributions. And then you throw in the travel and you throw in all the institutional challenges with the transfer portal, NIL. They were late to the NIL game, back-to-back 3-9s. It's not a good situation, but there's a ton of potential. First of all, you're taking over. There's almost nowhere to go but up. There's not a lot of pressure to win immediately. And it's got they can do whatever they want to do. It is just a matter of willpower. They have got a $10 billion university budget. They've got billions in endowment that is not allocated for scholarships. They can do whatever they want. So they do have a president who does seem to recognize that football is important and that this is a tipping point for not only Stanford and Cal, but a lot of schools across the country. The next 5 years are basically an audition either to get in a Super League or to get in the Big Ten and the SEC in the 2030s. So with a president who cares about football, I think that makes it a little bit more of an attractive job than it might look like.
Plunkett, John Elway, Bill Walsh, obviously Christian McCaffrey. You got Jim Harbaugh. There's a history there. Now, it's not like Notre Dame, but they've always played a hell of a schedule.
Yep.
Is there enough interest from the past, from alums and former players, et cetera, to get this thing done?
I think so. I just don't know how much influence they really have in the athletic department machinations.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit of a mystery because they don't have an AD. The athletic director who stepped down, Bernard Muir, was not, my understanding is he wasn't super close to the alums, but there is certainly a huge support system for Stanford football and Stanford athletics generally, not only financially, but just in terms of the clout that a lot of these people have. So we'll see. It could become a great job. They could win like they did or close to what they did 15 years ago if they find a new Jim Harbaugh. The challenges are different now, but it's mostly just institutional willpower.
John Wilner, the Willer Hotline, with us on 365 Sports the day after Stanford has taken care of their football coach.
Where is the athletic fan base with their fervor right now? I mean, if you watch home games last year, they weren't excited. I mean, it wasn't packed full, but they have this great athletics history, but it doesn't seem like it's translating now to the current student body.
No, part of their problem is they're a quarter school, so often they play 2 or 3 home games when the students aren't even there. But generally speaking, the stadium has been empty for years. Late 2010, after they had McCaffrey and then Bryce Love, things went downhill quickly, and there's tens of thousands of empty seats. But it was 10 years ago they were selling the place out, and they were a hot story. They were top 10 on a regular basis, 3 Rose Bowls. So if they get back to that, I think they've got a good chance to fill it, but they've got to win, and they got to win consistently. And again, the cost of not winning in the next few years for a lot of schools that are not in the Big Ten or SEC is critical. You can't afford to flounder between now and 2030.
No, you can't. You better be set up. I mean, even schools that are not a part of it, like, for example, USF, we had Alex Golish on Monday. They're building a new stadium. They're trying to, hey, look at us, right? Look at us. And they got to win. They're playing a hard schedule. We've been doing this, going day by day with certain schedules, not really getting too much into the X's and O's, and I know you got to go. North Carolina's schedule this year, they play at Cal.
Yep.
11 of their 12 games, John, are on the East Coast. Think about that. And, of course, that's part of where the ACC is. They play at Syracuse, but they play 11 of their 12 games, and a chunk of them, of course, in their home state. And that's the challenge, Stanford and Cal and others. Man, that's hard to get over, in my opinion.
It is a huge challenge, but it's also a challenge for those schools in their Olympic sports and in basketball. I mean, Oregon, Washington, USC, UCLA had a hard time in the Big Ten in basketball and football. Right, traveling. We saw what happened to a lot of the schools on those 9 a.m. games or 9 a.m. kickoffs. It is a difficult situation. I think it's more manageable for football than it is for the other sports, but it doesn't seem to me to be sustainable. And I don't know why the ACC schools have it set up pretty well. So for football, they're not making multiple trips to the West Coast. But I don't know why they want this to continue for their Olympic sports long haul either. It doesn't make sense for anybody.
Thank you, man. I know you got to go. Thanks, John. Appreciate your knowledge.
Thanks, guys.
John Wilner, the Wilner Hotline on the Stanford opening and kind of the decisions behind it. And Andrew Luck right now basically with the full authority of whatever happens with the football program. Hired as a general manager. And I just wonder if eventually general managers – they're not going to take the job of ADs, but you wonder, because football brings in so much money, are they going to be like right there as much with the athletic department as they are with the sport that they're supposed to be the general manager of.
I think athletic director probably 20 years from now is a totally different thing than it is now, because you have a general manager that runs that thing, and an athletic director maybe is more like the CEO of a team.
I mean, the thing is, got GM's GM of football, not volleyball, women's basketball, swimming, and all that. So you got to still have an AD.
But like as far as when it comes to like that might be the case when it comes to the big like basketball and football and those things where you have a GM. And the AD then empowers the GM to do that, and the AD's job can then be more focused on fundraising and all that stuff. And then, like in the pros, the AD's like the owner. He and the president, decide to fire the coach or fire the GM, and that happens, and then the GM goes and hires another one. It could trend down that. It wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, I mean, so to answer this question, no, I don't think that the GM replaces the AD because it's two different jobs. But yeah, it could morph into something different. But yeah, I mean, they're not the same thing. So I don't think there's any threat there. I think there's much bigger concerns about whether there's even those positions at all in 20 years in college sports, because what even is college sports? So, yeah, I mean, the way that it's going, though, the GM in terms of football is going to have a lot of power. And do they take that from the AD and then the AD focuses on all the other sports? Then yes. But, yeah, I mean, you'd have to have a separate GM for everybody. You're not going to do that. So perhaps that's the route that's the best compromise is the GM of football takes care of all football-related matters, and the AD has say in all of the other matters. I don't know how cohesive of a partnership that would lead to in most places, but I guess it's good they had Andrew Luck there in place to be able to make the call with no athletic director, and just sounds like a big old mess out west that they're trying to figure out, and who's smarter to figure it out than a bunch of people out at Stanford, right? So I'm sure they'll tie up all these loose ends or unknot everything that's been muddled here in the last few months. But it was a very odd situation just in terms of the timing, and everybody's starting spring ball, and all of a sudden here you have a coach opening. And I know a lot of Twitter's it's just bots. It's bots and just people saying stuff to say stuff. But, there was the question about if he was such a terrible coach after the years that he had, it took this to finally push him out of there. He wasn't even winning games. So change was coming one way or the other here, it looks like pretty soon for Troy Taylor, but he went ahead and made the decision easy for Andrew Luck to go ahead and move on entirely. So, yeah, I'm intrigued. I'm also mostly just intrigued by Stanford's place in the grand scheme of things moving forward. The ACC thing is weird for them. It doesn't even feel right. And they've got a lot at their disposal, but they're just sort of out there. They're not at the forefront of anything really, and even when it comes to the old Sears Cup, which I forget what it's called now, I mean they're not even
all state.
Yeah, I mean Texas is winning that nowadays.
Learfield Cup.
Yeah.
And they also did that when there was no NIL. So now that swimmer can be bought and paid for by somebody else, and that shakes things up as well. We're used to just dominating those Olympic sports. So yeah, it's a weird era for everybody, but I think it's particularly weird for a school like Stanford at the moment to have to try to guide their way through all this, but could be a lot worse. You could have a much smaller treasure chest you're sitting on than they do. That's the one thing they're not going to have to worry about is money and the resources to get things done.
I saw an update on the Learfield Cup. Texas has won the last couple of years after Stanford won. It seemed like every year, and there's some teams involved. You're right. Stanford just used to own that $10 billion endowment. 10. I wonder if in those close conferences or discussions or board meetings or whatever, has Stanford ever thought about trying to go independent? Because they can do it because money. They can have a national schedule. Yet again, that would eliminate them from, pretty much being involved in the college football championship playoff, which right now is a pipe dream. But I just always have wondered that because of who they are, how unique they are, and the kind of money they have. They have an amazing endowment of $10 million.
Yeah, there's also a lot of downsides to doing independent scheduling,
Sure.
even if you can afford it. That's why most everybody's trying not to do it, except for Notre Dame now at this point.
And Notre Dame only does it in one sport.
Yeah,
exactly. The one with the least amount of regular season games too. But you only have to do 12 in the regular season, and then if everything goes right, the schedule after that makes itself. So yeah, you're right, Craig. I mean, like they're in the ACC and everything else. They're not trying to be independent across the board.
Yeah, and there was a GM note from here.
Yeah,
locally.
I was getting ready to say that. Baylor, Aaron Hunt, who was at Texas Tech, he's from where did he play? Denison, Texas, up in the north part of the Red River, just right next to Oklahoma, has been named or will be named the general manager. Matt Zenitz with that note, and he becomes the general manager within the football program. I honestly have to tell you this. When I saw the note, I did not know if they had one or not, because that's kind of that new trend over the last year or so. So he's been named the general manager.
Yeah, I mean, good for him. Former standout player at Texas Tech. He's been at Baylor for a good little while now and has firmly established himself as one of their, big-time, young up-and-comers within the coaching staff, and all of the responsibilities in involvement in recruiting and just things like that. He's been brought up numerous times as being somebody who does a great job, so wasn't surprised to see him get a promotion. I never even thought about them filling a general manager spot, but I guess everybody's just adapting to it at their own leisure, and now I guess if you don't have one, you're more of the odd man out than those who had ones initially when it was the new thing. Now, I guess everybody's going to have one, and this is theirs, and I think it makes a lot of sense, and I don't know what all of his responsibilities will entail, but he is obviously somebody who's, like I said, done a good job and gotten a lot of positive praise. So cool for him to get that opportunity, and that's a whole new industry that's been created now. I mean, there was not a job of NFL or NCAA football GM 2 years ago, and now there is.
Yeah.
And it's going to be at every school across the country that plays competitive pay-for-play football at the college level. They're all going to have this guy sooner rather than later. So, yeah, good to see Baylor address that. I don't know off the top of my head how many Big 12 schools even have a guy. I don't know, but that might be something to look into and see kind of where the league is when it comes to that. But, good for him, and I'm excited to learn more about what all that will include.
Speaking of GMs, Paul and Craig saw James Blanchard came walking into the Star last week.
Oh, really?
You might have been at lunch with your buddy.
My cousin, yes.
Yeah, having that big sandwich. He walked in. He was wearing a big Texas Tech leather jacket. I had a chance to go up and say hi to him and talk with him for a little bit. He was there to watch some of the players. I asked him about some of the players, and I hadn't seen him since he left for Lubbock. So he was there at Pro Day. Just wanted to bring that up as well. We have Paul's top five just around the corner. One more break. Garrett, do it now or before the top five?
Now's fine.
All right. Well, we will do that. Garrett Ross, Andrew Valade, and Emery Winter. Of course, hey, don't forget, please hit the like and subscribe button if you haven't already. We would appreciate that. And spread the word if you can. This is 365 Sports.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac, they are the people you can count on for all of your automotive needs, whether it's going to get a brand new vehicle, a pre-owned vehicle, just get some work done on your car. They can take care of all of those issues for you. I've been over there myself on a couple of occasions, and they fixed my car up right nice, and I've been driving really well since I got it back a few months ago, and I've definitely depended on them and walked away happy each time. But right now they are celebrating their anniversary sale savings, so you can still go and get your car fixed up or go check out all the different offers on their cars. But right now in particular, if you're looking to get into some newer vehicles, they've got some great options for you, like qualified non-GM owners having the ability to save $4,500 on a new 2025 Encore GX from the Buick lineup. Again, nearly $5,000 off new 2025 Buick Encore GXs for qualified non-GM owners. They also have the Car and Driver's Editor's Choice, the all-new Buick Envista, in stock right now over at Richard Carr, starting under $24,795. So a couple of different vehicle options. They can better explain all the bells, the whistles, the toys, and everything that comes with these new models. You can get more information by just going ahead and going on over to the dealership during business hours, or you can check out their inventory and get some of your questions answered over on the website, or give them a phone call during the day as well, and they'll be happy to help you out. They're locally owned, they're locally run, they've got great deals going on right now, and they're celebrating 26 years in the area. So do business in Waco with a dealership that gives back to the local community. Deal with people you can count on and take advantage of getting into a great new ride with thousands of savings right now at Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac.
In our logo and advertising, we say we are people that you can count on. What does that mean? It starts with providing a quality vehicle and quality service at a fair price. But it also means we do what we say we will do, and we treat people fairly with respect. It starts by hiring great people, good local folks who work hard with a caring attitude. Our employees are the real reason we are people that you can count on. Put us to the test and see for yourself that at Richard Carr Motors, we are people you can count on.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow at GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine now has 2 locations to serve you. The original on Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street and the brand new spot in downtown Waco at 600 Franklin Avenue. If you're looking for the best in craft beers or local Texas bourbons, then the original is the place to be. And for the latest trends and online phenomenons, head downtown to the Franklin location. Either way, you're going to get the same great variety, customer service, and speedy experience. Check out both locations on their Facebook and Instagram pages, Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street, and now downtown on Franklin Avenue.
This is 365 Sports. Check out the 365 Sports family of channels on YouTube.
365 Sports as we head towards Paul Catalina and his top 5 just around the corner. So, we've the Dion and Colorado and Fran Brown, Syracuse, and they're looking at the possibility. I don't know if the NCAA, whatever they'll do, as if they have any power anymore. But as far as the scrimmaging somebody different during the spring or even maybe doing like something like that in the month of August. And we brought this up, and those two have brought it up, and Dion brought it up. So did a question to Mike Gundy at Oklahoma State. He was asked about it, and he said that, well, I tell you what we should do. We should do a home-and-home with Oklahoma. And he wasn't talking about games like in the schedule because that might take a while before everybody gets back to doing that. But he mentioned, maybe we play there one week and then they come here or every other year, whatever. But he seemed to like the idea. And I was listening to him. He talked about other things. That's about as relaxed as I've seen Mike Gundy. And he has been always kind of relaxed, but that's the most relaxed I've seen him in quite some time.
Yeah, I like the idea. I mean, I really do. I'm very curious, about what they can do. I know that getting the information from the NCAA on if they'll allow it or not is the first step. But I really do think that they should do something like this because. Look, if spring football is going to go away and you don't want it to, the biggest thing you can do is make it different and make it fun, make it something the fans want to watch, make it something you can make more money off of. Like, that's all a good idea, to me. So,
yeah, I mean, I think they need to get back to playing in the regular season. I understand the schedules the way that they are. That's seemingly hard to do or impossible or just not really wanted on Oklahoma's part. But I do think that getting Bedlam back to being a regular season game is best for college football, and hopefully that happens in the next few years. But, he's just jumping on the popular story right now and giving his 2 cents, and I think having another name that is throwing their weight in the direction of what Dion is looking to do and what Fran Brown is looking to do and what various others are looking to do. What did Kleiman say yesterday? I don't even remember.
He's still for it. He thinks that before it's all said and done, that's what they're going to go to, almost to the point where they're going to do everything in the summer, like late spring, early summer.
So, there's 4 coaches right there who are pretty well-respected and whatnot, and that have won some games that feel like it's a good idea. So I just think we'll hear more and more. I don't know that I've heard anybody say they don't like the idea. If I may have just missed it. Maybe Kirby Smart or somebody's jumped out and said that.
Phil Snow kind of maybe.
I think there's some questions about it. I don't think it's just such a clear cut oh yeah, this is great. There's no what if somebody does get hurt? Well, that could happen in any practice. It's yeah, but there's probably an increased chance when you're going against somebody who's not really looking out for your best interest either. You know what I mean? So I think there's
Gundy mentioned that it would not be just like a full game.
Yeah, it couldn't be. That's where I have my kind of stop down in the conversation is wait, what are the parameters of this thing? Because if it's just a full-blown scrimmage, then there's a few too many risks involved. So, yeah, you'd have to, not hit the quarterback and do things like that like you would in a typical scrimmage,
sure.
and that would make sense. Rather than I think some people are starting to, think of, full, as close to a game as possible. And it's no, it would just be a glorified scrimmage. But even that's better than probably what we got right now with just the traditional way of things. And obviously that's all going to the wayside. So, yeah, I'm intrigued by the idea, and I think it's something that if they get the petition if the petition they put out there, Fran and Dion, if that gets whatever the proper verbiage is accepted, I guess, or passed or whatever I'm supposed to say there, then I think that'll open the floodgates and you'll see a bunch of schools follow suit. Probably not all of them, but a lot of them likely would. And I think for the Oklahoma schools, this just makes too much sense. Why would you not want to do something like this? There's no reason to not do something like this outside of just your, like I said, health concerns and all of that. But if you can alleviate those and design it to where it's not too much of a risky proposition for either team, then, yeah, there's a lot of good that could come from this, and particularly for the fans, where I don't think a lot of things happening right now are really for the fans. This would actually be something for the fans, which is probably why it won't happen. No, but in all seriousness, this is why it should happen.
Do a 3-way scrimmage with Tulsa, and that way everybody can kind of I'm kidding, but I'd like to see Tulsa get involved. That's why I thought about OU Tulsa, Oklahoma State Tulsa, A&M and Sam Houston State, but I don't see anything wrong with it. I think it makes a lot of sense. It's just a matter of, do you do it in spring if it stays structured the way it is, or do you do it in August?
Well, I don't know. He's got plenty of ideas. He said, honestly, that's something we've talked about. I think it's a great idea, blah, blah, blah. He said, for us, we should do a home and home with OU in the spring, charge $25 per head. They can use it for NIL. We'll use it for NIL. And he said if they only want to play one game per year, then they could alternate hosting every year, and the schools could split the gates. He said that they wouldn't be live games, and this is why you got to dig down in the story. They would not be live games due to injury risk, so exactly what I was just talking about. But the teams could have open practices and scrimmage against one another, emulating the models NFL teams use in training camp. He said nobody really has live scrimmages anymore, so you make it a full thud like we're doing and practice against them just like they do in the NFL. We're moving towards the NFL. Why not do that? I think it'd be a great idea. So that's what he actually said about it, and also had some more of the details as far as, yeah, you can't just go, this is a regular season game in March, or we're going to play it like that. It'd be lipstick on a practice, basically, but it would definitely be more exciting than just Oklahoma State or Oklahoma going up against themselves for, another day.
Yeah. By the way, Garrett, did you see the story about Nitro Tuttle, the Georgia wide receiver? Speedy.
Was this the wreck?
But did you see how fast was he driving, apparently, according to the police?
I didn't see that. No.
107 miles an hour.
I'm not surprised from that program.
Before he was stopped and arrested on March the 19th by Athens-Clarke County Police Department. 107, 42 miles an hour. Over the speed limit. And, Craig, you brought this up. What kind of car was he probably driving?
It's like one of three, like a Challenger or Charger or
Charger.
Hellcat.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's Charger. Ding. Every time. It's one of those like 3 vehicles, maybe a track hawk or something gets thrown in there occasionally, but yeah, it's pretty much always the same vehicles.
How can people go over the speed limit?
Yeah, you know.
107. That's
You know what's weird to me though? I mean, look, the Charger is a performance machine. It's built for speed, but none of the guys who have Lambos do this. They don't, and I think you know why.
I don't think as many have them as we probably think.
No, but
like
UT's got a few. Yeah, but like a couple guys driving the Lambos, but I remember like the pros like having Lambos. Like none of them. It's the Charger. You know why? And I think, and this is a testament to Dodge, is that if you something happens to a Dodge, you can like that. But like if you like wreck a Lamborghini or something happens to your Lamborghini, you're like, oh dear God, I don't even know where I'm going to go.
I would hope you're probably, if you're driving a Lamborghini, you're smart enough to know.
Yeah.
The dangers of it, whereas I think some guys who just jump in a Charger maybe aren't, I don't know. I'm trying to like rationalize why there's not more Lambo related. I think one, not as many guys can afford those, and two, it's probably maybe you're just a little bit more careful with it because it's not as common of a car. I don't know though. That's a good question. It's never a Ferrari, or it's always.
I wonder if there were
Charger,
back in the day Trans Ams. Alan Samuels, by the way, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, one of our sponsors of this show, 107 miles an hour. His girlfriend was in the car at that particular time. How much of a ticket is that? Forget about reckless driving, which is also a separate part. 107, 42 miles, that's got to be like $1,000 ticket.
Yeah, I would think so.
When I was speeding that day after the long trip back from Midland, Odessa, going up to turn my car in at Love Field after dropping you off at Waco, I think I was doing 88. And the lady was not happy with me. And I said, ma'am, I'm
in a what?
In a 75.
Okay.
But still, she stopped me, and it was a DPS, I believe, Milford, Texas. And I wasn't in the mood. I had been driving 1,000 miles that day. And she said, I started, I'm 88. I wasn't arguing that I was speeding. I admitted that. But she said, I can take you right now to jail for reckless driving. 88 in a 75. Because there's that pocket right there on between here and Dallas where you can roll. But so imagine what he was doing at 107. I can't even imagine. That's when your car starts to shake a little bit. Although driving a Charger, maybe that's just getting tuned up. I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know. It's hard. The Charger,
Challenger and Charger. Those are some alphas.
I mean, I remember just driving it on the, when I took it down to the old Austin Autobahn there, when we had them, I was just going the speed limit and it didn't feel,
Yeah, you don't drive past the speed suggestion, do you?
A little bit, but not like you do. The thing is, here's the deal. You think you're saving time, but you're not. You're not.
The tortoise in the hair?
It's not that.
Well, if you're saving, it's like 5 minutes, maybe.
Yeah,
maybe.
I can tell you this, and I have real life research of me and you driving. We were going to a remote at Fort Hood one time.
Yep.
And you were in your car, and Casey Hartman and I who our promotions director, were in the van. And she turns to me and goes,
That's your fault.
She's watching. Well, somebody had to drive it, and it was me because I was the low man on the pole, total pole. But so we're watching, and she's like, what is he doing? He's just weaving in and out of traffic. And I said, well, he thinks he's going to win some sort of race there. And you beat us there. And we could, in the van, it did shake when you got over 61 miles an hour. It shook like it was going to fall apart. So I was going the speed limit the entire time or below it because that thing was just terrible to drive.
It was a shell.
Yeah, it was a shell.
Yeah.
And you beat us there by 90 seconds.
Yeah, but you also wrecked that van one time.
No, the van was wrecked with me in it.
Yeah.
It was not my fault, but yeah.
See, because if you would have been doing faster, you would have been a mile or two down the road.
If I would have been doing faster, I would have careened into a truck that was in front of me. So I was punished for being the responsible driver and doing exactly what I should have done. And the police report indicates as such.
Oh, damn, what are you doing?
Then I remember our handyman at the thing calls me the next day because he went out to go pick up, get it towed to Waco. This is Colleen. And he's like, hey, you guys didn't clean anything out of here. I'm like, hey, I almost died.
Is that Mitch?
Yeah, Mitch was like, buddy, I almost died. We filled up Smokey's car as much as we can. I was like, you're telling me you're mad about having to take some stuff out of here? I was in the mother,
No, whoa.
I was like, that's what I was like. I was in it.
Whoa.
Think how I felt in it.
Yeah. All right, Garrett Ross, thank you so much. We're not done. We have Paul's Top 5 around the corner, and this is 365 Sports. IdealMRI.com. In the Central Texas marketplace, Dr. Rob Maxey and the partners that own the company have done an amazing job to find out what is hurting you, or a doctor refers to an MRI. Go to Ideal MRI. In fact, I was at one of the local hospitals, one of our sponsors, Baylor Scott and White, and they wanted me to get an MRI of my neck. My God, everything else has been inside that machine, so why not the spine, the cervical part of my spine? And so I did. And the images came back very quickly. The doctors got that back very, very quickly, and $497 or less every single time at Ideal MRI. Now, mine was nothing because I'm on Medicare, but $497, the average MRI is $1,100. You make the decision, and if your doctor wants an MRI, you make that decision for them. IdealMRI.com in the Central Texas marketplace off I-35 in Waco.
You might ask yourself what functional mushrooms are good for. Whether it's lion's mane, cordyceps, turkey tail, shiitake, reishi, they all serve a purpose.
You have ones for neurological health, ones for sleeping and gut health, and all these different areas. They pack a powerful punch.
Functional mushrooms are, of the millions of mushrooms and fungi out there, the ones that we can actually ingest and benefit from as humans. Like all adaptogens, they kind of adapt to what you need at the time that you need them.
We don't even really know that we're suffering. We just don't quite feel right. That's where these adaptogens come in and really start to close the gap and really start getting us closer to how we want to feel.
Functional mushrooms have definitely re-energized me and helped me face each day with a new vigor for life.
Learn ways that functional mushrooms can help you. Go to getumble.com.
You spent hours selecting your patio sofa. Choosing that grill would have taken weeks. Probably your car needed way more time. For sure, you would have spent months mulling over that pool of yours. Protecting your prized possessions needs no time, though. Just visit coversandall.com. Create a custom size per your requirements. Pick a fabric and personalize your cover. and leave the rest to us. Premium protection for all that you love.
This is Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Ticket Club. Forget the fees, just big savings. Click the link in the description to find out more.
Welcome in. It's Wednesday. And that means we have another Top 5. It means we have a Top 5 every day. I don't know why I phrased it like that. I'm sorry. I got hit in the head. Top 5 interesting college basketball hires, of course, brought to you by Ticket Club. Click the link in the description. Forget the fees, ticketclub.com. So let's start with my alma mater and Florida State. They hired Luke Laux, an alum, was a point guard at Florida State under Leonard Hamilton years and years ago, and has been an NBA assistant. He was with the Sacramento Kings, and really highly thought of NBA assistant there, a good basketball mind. And when you see the trend, I'll call it the Kevin Young trend, that BYU started hiring NBA assistants to be college head coaches, it's because they know how to deal with diva basketball players who are looking for money. That's going to be a big thing. Florida State's got a ton of money pointing towards improving the disastrous football season of 2024 right now. Most of their NIL dollars will be pointing in that direction. But an alum like Luke Laux, can he come in, improve the recruiting to a level that Leonard Hamilton had it? He was going along well, and the last 4 years just have not been, up to speed. Things have changed, and it was time for Leonard Hamilton to retire. It's time for a new voice. Can that new voice get Tallahassee enthusiastic about basketball? Can he bring in good players? Can they have the NIL and the situation to make them competitive in what is a wide open ACC after this year? It is pretty wide open. There is a chance to move up the ranks right now. And Luke Laux, an interesting choice, but no college head coaching experience, and we don't really know how he is as a recruiter. So what can I tell you about if this is a great hire or not? To be determined, but it's interesting, to say the least. Number 4, Ryan Odom at UVA. Didn't make my top 5 hires, but I think it's really interesting because of the style of basketball that VCU plays compared to the style of basketball that Virginia's been playing forever. In case you're unfamiliar with Tony Bennett's style of basketball, it is mostly defense. It is like shooting is like not even secondary, it's like tertiary in Tony Bennett's style of basketball. He retired earlier this year, left it to an assistant. Virginia obviously did not have a good year, and moved on and hired Ryan Odom from VCU. So he's just down the road, and again, he said good to be home at Virginia. He's thrilled to be there, but a different system and something that Cavalier fans aren't used to seeing. Their style had maybe become a little bit antiquated. It was antiquated even when they won the national championship with it. They just had the right guys to run it and the right situation, the right matchups throughout the tournament. But this is a team that, in 2019 won the NCAA title. That was not that long ago. So there's a fervor there for basketball, and can you capture it? Ryan Odom, an interesting hire in a different style. Curious to see how he does there. Number 3, Mike Bibby at Sacramento State. Look, Sacramento State's going all out when it comes to attention-grabbing names. They decided on, which is a great hire, Brendan Marion as their football coach, but they did call up certain people like Robert Griffin III, engage his interest, and Michael Vick, engage his interest. In fact, RG3 told us on this very show a couple weeks ago that he had been offered that job but did not take it, and they went to Brennan Marion, which is a great choice. And so football-wise, they're trying to make a splash. They want to get some good attention. Well, they just went and got one of the more popular point guards of the last 20 years in the NBA, and Mike Bibby, a guy who comes from coaching, a guy who is a very smart player on the floor, and who's very recognizable, especially within the city of Sacramento, since he spent such a large chunk of his career with the Kings. This one's super interesting to me. I think Mike Bibby will probably be a great coach. But again, he's coaching the Big Three. There's been some other things, but I am super interested to see how Mike Bibby does at Sacramento State. Number 2, Josh Pastner at UNLV. He was at Memphis. He was at Georgia Tech. Very successful, and then successful, but it just kind of maybe hit some bumps in the roads at both places, and has been doing TV and doing a great job of it, by the way, the last couple of years. He was on Zach Gelb's show yesterday and talking about how he feels he can coach in this era and get a budget and do those things, and he's excited to do it. An hour later, he was announced as the UNLV head coach. His agent was working on that while that was going on. UNLV, same thing. They went and got an accomplished coach who'd been on TV for a couple years for football in Dan Mullen, and now they do the same thing with Josh Pastner, bringing him into Las Vegas. Very interesting to see how Josh Pastner does. Modern era, I think he runs the pace really, really well. And the most interesting hire to me, Darian DeVries at Indiana. He's got a really solid coaching record. Was great at Drake, then came to West Virginia, didn't make the tournament, but should have. Did it without his son, the best player on the team all year long. They should have made the tournament. Again, that's not a surprise here, but Indiana is at a point where it's been a very, very long time since they're the level of relevance that their fans understand and want. They're so far away from that. I think Darian DeVries, if you want to compare it to a football hire and a fan base, this is much like Matt Rule in Nebraska. You've brought in a guy who needs to rebuild your culture and your program from the ground up. This is not a reboot or a restart. This is a rebuild. That's what you have to look at it. Bobby Knight is long gone. The era of Indiana being one of the talked about teams, yes, you're a basketball blue blood, and basketball is the most popular sport in your state, but your flagship university has been up and down in a way that is not befitting of a blue blood. And you're kind of in the emeritus category right now. Much like Nebraska in football, it's been a long time since they have been dominant and relevant on the level that their fans expect and enjoy. Matt Rule's been brought in to fix that and bring them back to it. Darian DeVries, similar situation in Indiana. Indiana fans, much like Nebraska fans have had to let go of the past and look ahead as opposed to looking back, because it's been a long time. There's a team in the pros that could do this too, and I'm talking the NFL. That's the Dallas Cowboys, where they're always looking back and not necessarily looking ahead. Indiana fans, look ahead. As long as you do that with Darian DeVries, he will win. But if you keep holding him to a standard that you haven't reached in a long time, no matter who the coach has been, he's going to fail. Just like all the other coaches between Bobby Knight and Darian DeVries have. So hold him to a reasonable standard, and he will build and he will do well there. And he knows you care. He knows you love it. But you got to, admit that 1987 was a very, very long time ago. I was 7. I was adorable, by the way, as a 7-year-old. Just wanted you to know that. A little fun fact as we end the show. Smokey, don't let me talk about my 7th grade adorableness any longer. Well, guess what? I can, and I will talk about my 7th grade adorableness right up until 6 o'clock. Actually, no. We're going to go home early. Smokey had an interview he had to do, so he had to leave the studio and left me in charge for the end of the show. So this is where I would like to talk about 19th century French poetry for a few minutes and what it means to me. No, I'm kidding. I would not do that because I don't know anything about 19th century French poetry, just that it certainly did exist. It was there.
It definitely did.
It was there. It happened. I know it happened. I just couldn't, if you sent me to to do a TED Talk about it, I would be it would be the shortest TED Talk of all time.
I was trying to think, was Voltaire there in the 19th century, but I could get confused. I do love me some Voltaire.
We're talking about the 1800s right there.
Okay, yeah.
So, I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, don't forget about 365 Sports Tonight. If you're here locally, please like and subscribe to the channel when you do. Thanks to John Wilner. Thank you to Grant McCasland, and thank you to Eric Galco. Thanks to Emery. Thanks to Andrew. Thanks to Garrett. Thanks to Smoking. Thanks to Craig. Thanks to all of you for watching. We're back again tomorrow. See you then, everybody.